The sense of wonder. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a silent sky at night. You're lying on the ground, staring upward. The stars, these tiny white specks, seem too far away to touch. Part of you wants to believe they're little holes in a giant, dark curtain, letting light peek through. Another part of you wonders if each star is a sun, bigger and more powerful than anything you can imagine. But feel that warm, buzzing sensation in your chest, the strange mix of curiosity, and maybe a touch of fear. That's your first glimpse into what we call wonder. It's like a spark in your mind, making you ask things like, what is really out there? Could there be something more than what I see? This spark might feel good or it might make you uneasy. But once it's lit, you can't just wave it away. That spark is ancient. It's the reason our earliest ancestors painted mysterious shapes on cave walls. It's why humans built massive stone monuments, lined up perfectly with the movements of the sun and the moon. It's why we tell stories about unknown creatures lurking in forests or ghosts wandering old houses. Somewhere deep in the human mind, we carry this unstoppable urge to look beyond the usual. Some might say it's a glitch, just enough self-awareness to get us tangled in questions we can never fully answer. Others might call it our greatest treasure, a drive that pushes us to explore, and maybe, just maybe, find something new and amazing. But here's the thing, wonder isn't always comforting. It can make you realize just how small you are. If you've ever stood by the ocean and watched the endless waves roll in, you might have felt that pinch of humility. The water stretches out so far you can't see the end. Is there land on the other side? Probably, but you can't spot it with your own eyes. That's the nature of the unknown, like a deep forest where the path twists out of sight. Part of you wants to run in and find what's there. Part of you worries about what might be hiding in the shadows. This push and pull can feel like a burden, a reminder that the universe is huge and you're one tiny piece within it. Yet that's also where true excitement lies. The promise that there's more to discover. For example, the idea of dark matter. Scientists noticed that galaxies spin in a way that doesn't make sense if we only count the stars and the visible gas. It's like there's this invisible stuff adding extra gravity, a hidden hand shaping the cosmos. They call it dark matter because they can't see it directly. They only guess it's there because of its effects on what they can see. That's a lot like our sense of wonder. You can't hold wonder in your hands. It doesn't have a shape or color. But you know it's real because of the way it pulls you toward bigger questions. It's an invisible anchor, tugging at your mind. But think about how it feels to stand at the boundary of what you understand. Maybe you're watching a documentary about black holes, and you learn that these cosmic monsters swallow light itself. That news can be unsettling. A place in the universe where not even light can escape? It sounds like something from a terrifying fairy tale. And yet, it's real, so real that astronomers have snapped an actual picture of the area around a black hole. You live in an age where you can see the shadow of a black hole with your own eyes, at least through a telescope's lens and a scientist's data. A century ago, no one would have believed that possible. That's the power of stepping beyond the known. Each discovery that once seemed impossible becomes a part of our everyday understanding. But why do humans keep pushing forward, even when it scares us? Part of it might be survival, the same way an animal sniffs around to find new food sources. Another part might be curiosity. Something in our minds just won't let us rest until we find out more. We stare at the night sky not only to marvel at the stars but to look for patterns, to see if there's meaning in how they're scattered. The patterns we find can be illusions, but sometimes they reveal truths about gravity, life, and time. That's the tension of wonder. We're always dancing between illusions and actual revelations. And in that dance, we might stumble upon big insights we never could have reached if we stayed in our comfort zone. So, wonder can sometimes feel like a curse. Have you ever become so lost in thought, maybe about where the universe ends or why we even exist, that you felt a little dizzy? That's your mind brushing against ideas that might be too big to grasp fully. When you realize how much is unknown, you can feel both fascinated and incredibly small, as if you're teetering on the edge of a cliff with no railing. Some people deal with this by shutting it down. Don't think about it too much. It's too scary. Others become obsessed, diving so deep into mysteries that they forget to look after themselves in everyday life. Wonder is powerful. It can illuminate or it can overwhelm. But let's talk about the good side of this restlessness. Wonder is why we send probes to Mars, hoping to find signs of past life in dry lake beds. Wonder is why divers risk their lives exploring underwater caves where no human has ever gone. Wonder is why mathematicians spend years wrestling with complex puzzles, trying to prove or disprove a theorem that doesn't have any obvious real-world use. For them, the hunt itself is a reward. There's a glow in chasing something hidden, an idea, a discovery, because every step forward, every new piece of knowledge, feels like a small victory against the darkness of the unknown. Take a moment to consider your own life. Think of the first time you wondered about something bigger than your day-to-day routine. Maybe you asked where dreams come from, or how fish breathe underwater, or why the moon sometimes looks red. That was the seed of exploration being planted. Over time, you might have asked more complicated questions about history, about the universe, about what it means to be alive. Each of those questions nudged you to learn more. Maybe you opened a book, or watched a video, or even asked a teacher. That is wonder acting like a ladder, helping you climb above your old level of knowledge. The climb can be tiring, and sometimes you lose grip. But if you keep going, you reach places you never thought possible. This is why wonder is often described as the fuel for science. People sometimes think science is just a bunch of facts in a textbook, equations, charts. But real science begins with a spark of curiosity. Galileo asked why objects fall to Earth at the same rate, no matter their weight. Marie Curie wondered if mysterious glowing rocks had unique properties that defied common knowledge about atoms. Albert Einstein toyed with the idea that space and time might be woven together. These pioneers started with the same sense of awe anyone feels when they see something they can't explain. They had the courage, or maybe the stubbornness, to say, "I need to understand this." They made mistakes, faced ridicule, and sometimes risked everything to chase those sparks. But in the end, they reshaped our world. At the same time, wonder can lead us astray if we're not careful. In our hunger for answers, we might grab onto ideas that sound exciting but have no real evidence behind them. There's a fragile line between a well-tested scientific theory and a pure guess that plays on our hopes or fears. For instance, think about conspiracy theories or wild claims about UFOs or supernatural events. Some of them might hold a seed of truth. There are indeed odd lights in the sky, and we do see unexplained phenomena. But if we abandon careful investigation, we can tumble into a tangle of rumors and fantasies. Wonder is like a bright flashlight in a dark room. It shows us places we haven't looked yet, but we still need rational thinking to figure out what's actually there. That's why the concept of mysteries is so intriguing. A mystery means there's a gap in our knowledge. Maybe it's something huge, like the nature of consciousness or the origin of life. Maybe it's something smaller, like a strange rock formation nobody has studied yet. The size of the mystery doesn't matter so much as the feeling it provokes, that mixture of excitement and confusion. Sometimes, we solve these puzzles and put them behind us, like figuring out that diseases are caused by germs, not curses or evil spirits. Other times, we get stuck at a puzzle that refuses to yield, like trying to figure out how to unify quantum mechanics with general relativity in physics. Each new clue can create more questions, more confusion, and yet it also creates more wonder. It's a never-ending story, a book with infinite chapters. Let's look at a relatable illustration. Imagine a child who finds a locked wooden box in the attic. The child doesn't know what's inside, only that the box is old, and the key seems to be missing. This child's heart might race with the thrill of possibility. Is there a treasure inside? Is it empty? Could it hold a secret from a family member who lived long ago? That excitement is so pure, so alive. But fast forward. Maybe the child grows up to become an archaeologist who opens tombs that have been sealed for centuries. The excitement in that archaeologist's heart is the same as what the child felt in the attic. It's wonder, guiding them to ask, could it be? What else is possible? You might think, but what does this wonder do for me if I still have to go to school? pay bills, and deal with everyday problems? The truth is, wonder can be an escape and an inspiration at the same time. When life feels hard or dull, remembering that there are still countless mysteries waiting to be explored can lift your spirit. You realize the universe is not just about deadlines and chores. There's a bigger stage, and you're invited to step onto it if you want. Maybe you'll never become an astronaut or decode ancient scrolls, but you can still read, watch, and even share your questions. You can feed that spark by letting your imagination roam through the unknown corners of reality. At this point, you might ask, isn't it frustrating to love mysteries that might never be solved? It can be. Human beings often crave certainty. We want answers. We want closure. That's why some people turn away from wonder if it doesn't give quick satisfaction. But consider this. What if the search itself is the point? Sometimes, the act of exploring is what shapes us, not the final destination. It's like hiking a steep mountain trail. You might get tired, and you might grumble about how long it takes to see the peak. But each step opens up a new view, maybe a waterfall you couldn't see before, or a rare bird perched on a branch. By the time you reach the peak, or decide to turn back, you've experienced a series of mini revelations you never would have encountered if you hadn't begun. So it goes with wonder. Even if you don't crack the code of the universe, every question you ask can expand your mind. You start connecting dots between subjects you never realized were linked. Astronomy and biology, art and geometry, philosophy and computer science. You begin to see patterns in your own life and in the world around you. Wonder becomes a kind of lens, focusing your attention on the hidden magic woven into everyday things. A single leaf can reveal the blueprint of an entire forest. A drop of pond water under a microscope can show you a miniature realm teeming with life. You realize how many layers of reality you've been missing because you never thought to look. But, and there's always a but, wonder can also lead you to dark places. Sometimes, peering into the unknown stirs up fear. You might stare too long at the possibility of life on other planets and begin to worry about alien invasions. You might study time and realize it's always slipping away, prompting existential dread about your own place in the grand scheme. In that sense, wonder is like opening a door that can't be closed. Once you step into the corridor of the unknown, you might find things you didn't want to see, your own limitations, the sheer vastness of the cosmos, the sobering fact that humans are incredibly fragile. Yet even that awareness can push you to appreciate what you do have. When you realize how fleeting and delicate life is, you might also realize how special every moment becomes. That sense of fragility can connect us to remember that you're not the only one lying awake at night, gazing at the ceiling, mind filled with unanswerable questions. Throughout history, countless others have done the same. Philosophers, explorers, scientists, dreamers. All of them wrestled with the same cosmic puzzle. What is the truth behind all of this? By sharing your questions, your hopes, your fears, you become part of a collective search. You find meaning, not necessarily in the final answers, which might never arrive, but in the shared journey. Think of it as a great human tradition, handed down through myths, and experiments. Even your quiet doubts link you to brilliant minds of the past and the future. Looked up at the sky or down at the ocean depths, hearts filled with a longing to know more. It's that shared longing that pushes us to build giant telescopes, capable of peering at distant galaxies that formed billions of years ago. It's why we keep discovering new exoplanets, worlds orbiting stars far from our own sun, and ask if they could harbor life. It's why we plan missions to icy moons, looking for clues of hidden oceans that might support strange, alien-like creatures. We dream of answers, but the quest itself fuels us. Every failure or false lead is still a step, still data we can use, still a reason to keep going. Wonder rarely offers a smooth ride. It's a winding road, full of twists and dead ends. Yet we drive on, propelled by a force we can't always describe. In simpler terms, we do it because something deep inside refuses to accept that the story ends here. There's a restlessness in the human spirit, a quiet voice saying, "There's more, keep looking." When that restlessness meets the unknown, sparks fly. The unknown teases us. What if reality is bigger, or more surprising than you've been told? That might sound thrilling or terrifying, or a little bit of both. But either way, it's an invitation few of us can truly ignore. But we come to a crucial realization. The unknown isn't just out there, in space, or at the bottom of the ocean. It's also within us. We don't fully understand our own minds, our own emotions, or why we dream what we dream. We don't know precisely how memories form or why certain sounds can make us cry. There's an internal universe as vast as the external one that can be just as exhilarating and just as daunting. We can invent advanced machines to scan our brains, measure our heartbeat, record our sleep patterns, but we still can't completely map out the territory of consciousness. The mystery inside is every bit as compelling as the mystery outside. If this seems overwhelming, maybe that's because it is. Being aware of how much we don't know can feel like carrying a heavy weight. Yet, it can also be strangely liberating. If you accept that the world is brimming with unanswered questions, you can feel less pressure to have it all figured out. You give yourself permission to learn at your own pace, to appreciate the wonder without needing to seal it off in a box labeled "done." In that space of not knowing, you can grow and remain open to possibilities you'd miss if you insisted on having all the answers right now. That leads us to a gentle truth. Wonder, at its heart, might be more about asking than answering. We strive for knowledge. People become experts in physics, biology, psychology. But every time we uncover a new layer of reality, another layer appears beneath it, beckoning us further. That's the natural shape of discovery. A fractal that branches again and again, each twig leading to a new cluster of twigs. It's never finished, never final. This can frustrate those who crave certainty, but it can also thrill those who delight in the endless puzzle. So as you move forward in this first segment of our deep dive into the unexplained, keep your mind alert and your spirit humble. Remember that the greatest thinkers in history started out much like you. Someone noticing a spark, a little flicker of curiosity that refused to die. Whether it's dark matter, black holes, ghostly apparitions in old houses, or the question of life on other planets, the mysteries we'll explore in this documentary each hold that same potential to captivate you, challenge you, maybe even unsettle you. And that's okay. Being unsettled can mean you're on the edge of learning something new, stepping beyond the boundary of what you thought was certain. Let your questions multiply. Let them swirl around in your thoughts, even if they make you a bit uneasy. Challenge yourself to see wonder as both a doorway and a mirror. It can lead you outward, to corners of the universe you never imagined, and inward, to depths of your own mind you've never plumbed. In either direction, there's magic to be found. And yes, magic might be just another word for natural processes we haven't fully understood yet. But that's the beauty of it. What once seemed magical can become science, and what seems like science can sometimes reveal pockets of magic we didn't anticipate. In closing, consider that your personal journey, your questions, your fascinations, your fears, is woven into this much larger tapestry of human wonder. You're part of an ancient story, one that began when the first person looked up at the stars and felt a strange tug inside. That person might not have had a telescope or even a concept of galaxies, but the feeling was the same. And here you are, carrying that same spark in a modern world filled with knowledge they could never dream of. If there's comfort to be found, maybe it's this: you're not alone in wanting to push the boundaries. You stand shoulder to shoulder with everyone who's ever dared to peek behind the curtain of what's known. That is where we begin our exploration. At the edge of certainty, gazing into the open sky of mystery. In the next parts of our journey, we'll dive into specific puzzles, things like dark matter, uncharted phenomena, and the fine line between conspiracy tales and serious inquiry. But before we jump into those details, remember this moment. This is where the magic starts, in the tingling feeling that there's more to reality than meets the eye. Embrace it, question it, wrestle with it. Let it keep you awake sometimes, stirring your thoughts, igniting your heart with the strange and wonderful truth that the world is bigger, darker, brighter, and far more mysterious than any of us might ever fully grasp. Because in that grand uncertainty, in that constant state of seeking, you'll find life bursting with color. You'll find a reason to keep exploring, even when you're tired, even when you're afraid. That's the promise of wonder, and that's the foundation upon which the rest of this documentary stands. You may be small, the universe may be vast, but your curiosity can bridge that gap, if only for a moment. And sometimes, a moment is all we need to glimpse the infinite. Unsolved mysteries in our universe. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine drifting in a quiet field at dusk. The sky is that soft, deep blue, no longer daylight, but not fully dark yet. One by one, stars begin to pierce the twilight, tiny pinpricks of light that seem impossibly far. You might try counting them, or naming them, as if you could capture their essence by placing them in neat lists. But before long, you realize there are too many. It's like trying to scoop water in your hands. Every time you manage to hold a little, more slips away. That's what it feels like when we confront the vast unknown, those endless puzzles that make up our universe and defy our best efforts to understand. Yet we keep trying. Something in us can't let it go. We want to figure out why galaxies form swirling arms, whether there's life on worlds far beyond our sight, and why time seems to move forward like a river that can't reverse its flow. This urge to solve riddles stirs a mix of excitement and humility. On one hand, it reminds us how alive we are, like explorers on a cosmic treasure hunt. On the other, it shows us how tiny our place is in the grand scheme, hinting that we may never get all the answers we crave. Each discovery unveils new layers of mystery, as though the universe is an onion we peel one layer at a time, only to find more layers beneath. Think back to childhood, when the smallest unexplained creak in an old house could make your heart pound. Maybe you heard a sudden thump upstairs, or a floorboard settling in the dead of night, and for a split second, you imagined something lurking in the shadows. The thrill and unease of that moment is much like the feeling we get when we peer into cosmic mysteries. Part of us wonders if logical explanations will suffice. Another part wonders if reality might be stranger and vaster than we dare imagine. We sense the possibility of unraveling deeper truths, but we also brace ourselves for just how unsettling they might be. One of the most enthralling mysteries is why our universe looks the way it does. Take a galaxy, for example, a majestic whirl of dust, gas, and countless stars. Simple calculations suggest those stars should fly apart, yet they hold together as if an unseen hand is guiding them. We call that invisible influence dark matter. No one has seen dark matter directly, but we see its footprints in the way galaxies spin and cluster. Scientists have tried many ways to catch it in the act, from deep mine detectors to specialized telescopes, but it continues to elude our grasp. It's humbling to think we can launch probes to Mars, photograph the outline of a black hole, and yet still be clueless about most of the stuff that shapes our cosmic neighborhood. By current estimates, all the visible matter, stars, planets, and people, makes up only a tiny fraction of the total. The rest remains hidden from direct observation, a silent force that reveals itself only in how it tugs on everything else. Then there's dark energy, another curveball from the universe that seems to speed up its expansion. If the Big Bang set everything in motion, we might expect the expansion to slow over time, like a ball tossed upward eventually falling back. Instead, we see it accelerating, as if the cosmos is slipping further and further out of our reach. Explanations range from quantum fluctuations to new physics that could rewrite what we think we know. But no one can pin it down with absolute certainty. It's as if each time we think we've caged the universe in a neat theory, it shows us a hidden door leading to a bigger, weirder room. Late at night, a quiet question may surface, especially when you gaze at the sky. Are we alone? Our galaxy alone contains hundreds of billions of stars, and the observable universe extends to billions of galaxies beyond that. If life arose on Earth, logic suggests it could arise elsewhere too. So why haven't we seen clear signs of other civilizations? This is the Fermi paradox. Maybe advanced beings stay hidden. Maybe they self-destruct before venturing out. Or maybe we really are alone, which is both a thrilling and a sobering thought. Some people find hope in the possibility of cosmic company, while others are unsettled by the idea that if a civilization out there is advanced enough, it might be watching us already or avoiding us for reasons we can't comprehend. Every so often, scientists pick up puzzling signals, spikes in data that set the imagination racing. Cosmic rays hit our atmosphere with more energy than we can easily explain. Fast radio bursts blink in distant galaxies, sometimes repeating, sometimes not, like cosmic Morse code that nobody fully understands. Are these signals purely natural phenomena, or do they hint at something more? The not knowing fuels speculation, alien beacons, starquakes, exotic cosmic objects. Each scenario fires up excitement and a healthy dose of skepticism. But the possibility alone reminds us that, no matter how many theories we propose, the universe might still surprise us in ways we don't expect. When faced with truly strange data, we humans tend to fill in the gaps with our own stories. If science can't yet explain an odd reading or phenomenon, our imaginations are happy to step in. This can open the door to wild conspiracy theories, claims that extraterrestrials are already here, that secret groups possess knowledge beyond our wildest dreams, or that ancient civilizations somehow decoded cosmic secrets we've lost. While sometimes a legend or rumor can hide a kernel of truth, jumping to conclusions can also derail genuine inquiry. There's a delicate balance between keeping an open mind about new, groundbreaking ideas and demanding solid evidence to back them up. We need both curiosity and caution, a willingness to be surprised, but also a standard that requires more than rumors or fuzzy photos before we overhaul our understanding of the world. Genuine science often unfolds in a cycle. Someone spots a puzzling observation, proposes ideas, gathers data, and debates with others until a consensus forms. It's messy and slow, but over time it can revolutionize our view of reality. Black holes were once considered fringe theories, yet now we've captured images of their silhouettes. Continental drift sounded laughable, yet it turned out to be one of the key principles explaining Earth's changing surface. Each new mystery holds the potential for future breakthroughs. When we say something is unexplained, we're not labeling it unsolvable forever. We're simply admitting that for now, the universe is a riddle that hasn't yielded its secrets. In a sense, every unsolved puzzle is a promise. Keep looking, keep testing, and maybe one day, you'll find a new piece of the cosmic puzzle. Strangely enough, there can be comfort in acknowledging what we don't know. We may feel relief in letting some questions remain open, instead of forcing them into neat boxes. If we accept that reality might be far more complex and far-reaching than our current comprehension, we can savor the journey of exploration without the pressure of closure. It's like immersing yourself in a long novel where you don't want it to end, because the unfolding chapters captivate you. If we did solve every cosmic mystery overnight, we might find ourselves oddly bereft of the wonder that keeps us engaged. The process of searching can sometimes matter as much as the answers themselves, but it would be naive to ignore the shadowy side of the unknown. Some mysteries carry implications that can spark real fear. Gamma ray bursts, for instance, massive cosmic explosions in distant galaxies, release unimaginable energy in a blink. If one too close to Earth were pointed our way, it could strip our planet's protective atmosphere. Meanwhile, we track near-Earth objects like asteroids or comets that might someday intersect our orbit. Humanity isn't entirely defenseless, but there's no guarantee we'll catch every danger in time. This precariousness highlights our fragility in a universe that doesn't promise our safety. Knowing that cosmic accidents can happen may fuel us to learn more, to prepare, even if we never achieve perfect security. Bigger yet is the looming realization that our sun, the very heart of our solar system, will expand in a few billion years, likely swallowing the Earth. That timescale is beyond our everyday worries, but it underscores how temporary our moment on this cosmic stage might be. Will we still be around to see that distant crisis? Will we have found other homes by then? The enormity of those questions can either paralyze us or inspire us to keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. In all these cosmic riddles, It's also easy to forget that countless individuals pour their lives into the search for answers. Some sit in remote observatories, taking data through long, cold nights. Others fill whiteboards with complex equations, hoping to reconcile mismatched theories. There are even amateur enthusiasts poring over online data sets, scanning for anomalies. Each is driven by the same hunger, to peel back the universe's veil just a little further. Some become household names, but many work quietly, piece by piece, adding tiny insights that one day build into major leaps forward. This collective effort ties humanity together. Even those of us who aren't professional scientists can share in the excitement whenever a new exoplanet is found, or a cosmic signal challenges our understanding. It reminds us that no matter our differences, we all dwell under the same vast sky, shaped by forces none of us can fully see. As the universe offers one enigma after another, it's almost as if it's inviting us to unify our efforts and perspectives, to share in a timeless tradition of reaching beyond what we know. At times, we might wonder if we'll endure long enough to solve the big puzzles. Civilizations rise and fall in the blink of cosmic time. We face environmental threats, conflicts, and other instabilities that make the future uncertain. This is sobering. The universe doesn't guarantee us an indefinite chance to keep asking questions. Our continued quest might rely on our collective ability to adapt and collaborate. If we handle our challenges wisely, maybe we'll earn the right to keep pushing deeper into these mysteries, extending our footprint beyond Earth to other corners of the solar system and, eventually, beyond. As much as we look outward at galaxies and cosmic expansion, we also look inward at the phenomenon of consciousness. If you pause and notice the simple fact that you're aware, thinking, and able to ask why you exist at all, that realization can be as mind-bending as any black hole. Our brains are bundles of neurons firing away, yet somewhere in that tangle, a self-aware mind emerges. Is consciousness a mere accident of biology, or does it tap into layers of reality we barely grasp? We build advanced machines, study animal intelligence, scan brain activity in labs, and still, the spark of "I exist" remains a profound enigma. Sometimes it feels like we carry a miniature cosmic mystery within us, mirroring the infinite wonders outside. You might think, this is all fascinating, but I have bills to pay, errands to run, deadlines to meet. And you're right. Most people don't wake up each day and dive headfirst into questions about cosmic rays or the fate of the universe. But these mysteries can still color your life in subtle ways. They can make you pause during an evening walk and stare a bit longer at the stars. They can make a conversation at the dinner table more intriguing when you discuss odd discoveries or new theories. They can be a source of quiet inspiration, a reminder that beyond the everyday grind, a whole universe of possibilities beckons. We don't explore alone. Across the world, people watch the same cosmic events. They see the same meteor showers, read the same headlines about distant supernovas, experience the same breathless wonder at the latest telescope image of galaxies from billions of years ago. This shared journey is part of our collective identity as humans. Even though we may never discover all the answers, we bond over the questions themselves. It's a thread running through centuries of myths, scientific breakthroughs, philosophical debates, and personal reflections. When we gather around a campfire or stand on a rooftop at night, we channel the same longing that led our ancestors to carve shapes on cave walls in awe of the cosmos. Art and fiction also feed this sense of possibility. Science fiction writers imagine worlds where advanced species harness energy from black holes or discover portals to parallel universes. Painters capture swirling galaxies or dream up surreal landscapes that echo alien realms. Musicians compose pieces that evoke the haunting beauty of starlight or the pulse of deep space. These creative works don't necessarily provide factual answers, but they stimulate the imagination, planting seeds that might one day bloom into scientific hypotheses or technological innovations. Without imagination, our progress could stall. Without factual grounding, our imagination might run wild with no anchor to reality. Together, they form a potent synergy that propels us forward. There's also a warning built into these mysteries. Every time we unlock a powerful secret of nature, we gain the ability to shape our world, for better or worse. Splitting the atom gave us both nuclear energy and nuclear weapons. Genetic discoveries led to miracle cures and to ethical dilemmas about altering life. One day, fully grasping dark matter or dark energy might open doors we can't yet conceive, and with that could come great responsibility. Our reverence for the unknown should keep us careful, humble, and aware that each discovery has the potential to change the course of civilization. Sometimes people ask if we'll ever run out of new mysteries. It seems unlikely. Each answer spawns new questions, each unveiling hints at deeper layers. The more we learn about the Big Bang, the more we wonder what, if anything, came before. The more we explore black holes, the more we question what goes on at their cores. It's like climbing one mountain peak only to see a never-ending chain of higher peaks beyond. Rather than being discouraged, many find excitement in this endless horizon. We may stop for a moment, catch our breath, and marvel at how far we've come, but inevitably, our curiosity urges us onward. In this second stretch of our journey, we've taken a closer look at some monumental puzzles: dark matter, dark energy, the search for extraterrestrial life, strange cosmic signals, and the complex boundary between legitimate science and raw speculation. We've seen how not knowing can be both exhilarating and unsettling, how it unites us across time and culture, and how it can push us to new heights of creativity and collaboration. We've acknowledged the fears that come with glimpsing our own cosmic vulnerability, gamma-ray bursts, roaming asteroids, and the slow but relentless changes that will ultimately reshape our solar system. Yet we've also found hope in the collective passion of countless observers, scientists, dreamers, and everyday people who share a love of wondering what lies just beyond our grasp. If your head is spinning a bit, that's normal. Embrace it. These questions are meant to stir your thoughts, maybe even keep you awake on some nights, gazing at the sky and feeling a tingle in your chest. Let that tingle fuel your curiosity. Let it remind you that there is so much left to discover, that life is not just about routines and practicalities, but about daring to peer beyond the known horizon. When you next find yourself under a canopy of stars, remember that for every bright point you see, countless more burn beyond your sight, across billions of light years. Each one might host planets, some of them possibly home to life forms peering back at us, equally curious about who or what lies beyond their own skies. We'll keep traveling this path in the segments ahead, diving deeper into the fine line between unexplained wonders and the uncertain realm of theories that challenge the mainstream. For now, take a moment to catch your breath, to let these mysteries settle. Look around at the everyday objects in your life: a spoon, a coffee cup, a buzzing phone, and realize they exist in the same cosmos that harbors hidden matter, mysterious energies, and signals from galaxies we can only see through powerful lenses. This contrast can be jarring or beautiful or both. There's a certain magic in recognizing that the ordinary and the extraordinary share the same cosmic home. If any of these riddles call out to you, maybe it's the search for dark matter, or the enigma of consciousness, or the possibility of alien life, know that you have every right to explore further. You don't need to be a scientist with a fancy degree. Curiosity welcomes everyone. Sometimes the best questions come from people unburdened by established dogma. Who knows what insights wait just around the corner, sparked by a fresh perspective? These mysteries also serve to remind us how precious it is to be conscious, to be alive in a universe that reveals just enough of its secrets to keep us hungry for more. Rather than letting our insignificance weigh us down, we might choose to let it lift us into humility and wonder. Each one of us is a small flame, shining briefly in an endless night, yet that flame can illuminate new corners of the unknown. Together, we form a collective glow, each curious mind adding to a broader tapestry of exploration. So carry these thoughts with you, gently and without rushing to tie them in a neat bow. The unknown isn't just a puzzle to be solved. It's a spark that keeps our minds awake and our hearts open. We stand on a tiny rock circling a modest star, in one galaxy among billions, each filled with countless more stars. We see only hints of the forces that shape it all, and we ask questions that may never have final answers. But in the asking, we find purpose. In the search, we find unity. And in this grand tapestry of mystery, we find a kind of beauty that words can't quite capture. Perhaps, in a way, that endless search is the real destination, a never-ending invitation to wonder. Maybe the ultimate point isn't to pin down every last fact, but to stay in that space where the universe whispers a million questions, and we answer with curiosity and awe. It's an old dance, one woven into human nature since our earliest ancestors painted their visions on cave walls. We continue it today, building telescopes, launching probes, writing theories, sharing stories. And though we may stumble or grow discouraged, we persist. For each day that passes, the cosmos beckons us, quietly and persistently, reminding us there is always more to see. So let these unsolved mysteries linger in your mind as we journey forward in this documentary. Let them shape your dreams and spark your daydreams. Let them remind you of the bond we share across the ages, a bond built on peering at the horizon, daring to step into the unknown, and discovering that, in doing so, we become more fully alive. And when the sky deepens to night again and you see that first bright star appear, take a moment to sense the vastness it represents and the countless riddles that lie beyond. Because in that moment, you stand on the threshold of wonder, and the universe, in its quiet way, is waiting for you to walk through the door. Looking beyond what we know, picture yourself standing at the edge of a winding country road at twilight. The sky above has shifted into soft shades of purple and deep blue, the last light of day melting into night. You feel a gentle breeze on your skin, hear distant crickets chirping, and see a faint shimmer of stars beginning to appear overhead. In that moment, you might sense how the world around you is alive with secrets you haven't yet discovered. The shadows between the trees, the glow on the horizon, everything hints at a layer of reality just out of reach. You find yourself wondering if the path ahead might lead somewhere extraordinary, or if there's more to the hush of the evening than meets the eye. That gentle thrill in your heart, part curiosity, part anticipation, is the same pulse that drives people to seek answers far beyond what they can prove. Maybe you've noticed how, when a mystery lingers unsolved for too long, people begin to fill the gaps themselves. Some turn to folklore or age-old legends, weaving tales that make the unexplained feel both magical and a little terrifying. Others rely on a skeptical lens, demanding concrete evidence before they'll believe. And still others spin stories that blend rumor and paranoia, offering conspiracies as a kind of quick solution to their questions. It's as if our hunger for explanations has many outlets, some that lead us to rigorous study and others that send us down a rabbit hole of suspicion and drama. Yet behind all these responses lies a common spark: the human need to make sense of things that seem too big, too strange, or too elusive for our everyday logic. That spark is neither good nor bad in itself. It's the same force that propels scientists to map distant galaxies and storytellers to dream up hidden realms. It fuels the desire to peer under every rock, climb every mountain, and test every theory until we either strike gold or hit a dead end. Sometimes, though, this spark can take a darker turn. When evidence is sparse and emotions run high, some people find themselves leaning into conspiracy theories, convinced that official sources are hiding the truth. In these moments, wonder mixes with fear, forging a belief that powerful forces are pulling strings behind the scenes. It's as though the unknown is too unsettling to accept, so we invent a web of secret explanations that claim to reveal the puppet master behind the curtain. There is a certain thrill in believing we're onto something no one else dares to see. Conspiracy theories offer a feeling of special knowledge, a sense that, while everyone else is being fooled, you alone or with a select group hold the key to a secret reality. That buzz can be addictive. It can make your heart beat faster and your eyes widen at every new clue you think you've uncovered. Yet, if you step back for a moment, you might notice how these conspiratorial stories rarely rest on clear, testable facts. They often rely on rumor, incomplete connections, or the assumption that an all-powerful group orchestrates everything from behind the scenes. Even when contradictory evidence appears, the theory can bend itself to fit new challenges, like a shape-shifting creature that's never pinned down. You might ask, why do so many people turn to conspiracies if they often lack solid proof? Part of it is our natural suspicion. We've all felt lied to at times, whether by an authority figure, an advertisement, or even a trusted friend. That sense of betrayal can linger, making us wary of accepting official explanations. Another part is that conspiracies are compelling narratives. There's drama, the sense of danger, and an element of puzzle solving that feeds directly into our urge to be explorers. It's not so different from how we devour detective novels or binge-watch thriller shows. Except in this case, we sometimes forget we're weaving fiction into reality. Yet, on the opposite end of the spectrum, a purely skeptical approach can also become limiting if it's taken to an extreme. Some people scoff at every claim that sounds odd, dismissing anything outside their comfort zone as nonsense or fantasy. They cling to established facts and accepted models, forgetting that history is full of once radical ideas, from the Earth orbiting the Sun to the existence of microscopic germs, that later turned out to be true. In its own way, rigid skepticism can stifle the same wonder that conspiracy theories exploit. If you're too quick to wave off unusual claims, you might miss a spark that leads to genuine discovery. So how do we, as curious but cautious explorers, find a middle ground? One approach is to hold onto our sense of wonder without letting it run away from evidence and reason. You might think of it as carrying both a bright lantern and a map. The lantern is your open-minded fascination, shining into the darkness, revealing corners you might not otherwise see. The map is your rational guide, drawn from what you've learned, tested, and confirmed. When you step into the unknown, you use your lantern to keep an eye out for surprises, but you also check your map to avoid tumbling off a cliff. It's not a perfect system. Sometimes you'll find the map incomplete, or the lantern's light might throw strange shadows that mislead you. But it offers a framework for exploring responsibly, remaining open to the possibility of radical new truths while anchoring your steps in verifiable observations. This balance is, in essence, the spirit of scientific inquiry. Real science is seldom the clean, polished story that textbooks sometimes present. It's messy, full of false starts, heated debates, accidental discoveries, and the occasional big leap that rewrites entire chapters of knowledge. The difference is that, in science, claims must face repeated tests. Researchers share their data, compare results, and invite others to poke holes in their theories. Over time, if the evidence is strong enough, a once controversial idea can become widely accepted. This process is never finished. New data can always emerge, forcing us to update or abandon even our most cherished models. It's a humbling system that reminds us we don't have final answers. We just have the best answers we can muster at the moment, subject to change. But the line between curiosity and fear can be thin. When we talk about UFO sightings, for instance, we wander into that fuzzy region where official reports, eyewitness accounts, and possible government secrecy all swirl together. Are these sightings proof of alien visitors, top secret military projects, or simply misidentified natural phenomena? Opinions differ sharply. Some insist the truth is being suppressed, while others say there's no credible evidence of extraterrestrial involvement. In reality, the world is more complicated than a simple yes or no. Many sightings likely have mundane explanations, but the possibility of something truly out of this world remains open if new evidence emerges. The challenge is to investigate carefully, looking for consistent data, while neither dismissing every claim as nonsense nor embracing every rumor as fact. It's not just extraterrestrials that fall into this middle zone. Ghost stories, strange coincidences, claims of hidden cures or ancient technologies, our culture is rife with them. Often, these topics become battlegrounds between enthusiastic believers and unyielding naysayers. Maybe you've witnessed such arguments. One person pulling up anecdotal stories or shaky photos, the other person rattling off facts and figures. Often, both sides become more entrenched the longer they argue. But beneath the friction, there's a shared impulse, They both want to uncover the truth, or at least defend what they believe the truth to be. If we could harness that passion constructively, encouraging each other to gather solid evidence, test interpretations, and stay open to new perspectives, we might find we share more common ground than we realize. You could ask, what does it matter if someone believes a conspiracy theory or buys into an unproven claim? Sometimes, these beliefs don't have large consequences. A personal fascination with the Bermuda Triangle might just be a harmless interest. But other times, theories can steer real-world decisions, influence policy, or sow mistrust that undermines social cohesion. Think of medical misinformation that leads people to reject proven treatments, or climate change denial that disrupts global efforts to manage our planet's resources wisely. Ideas have power, and when they're detached from well-tested evidence, they can cause harm. On the flip side, overly rigid dismissal of new ideas can also slow progress. If we label every unconventional thought as dangerous, we risk turning away from potential breakthroughs. This duality points to the importance of critical thinking, another term that sometimes gets thrown around without clarity. Real critical thinking isn't about being negative, it's about evaluating claims systematically. It involves asking questions like, what evidence supports this idea? Who collected that evidence? And how reliable are they? Have there been attempts to replicate or challenge the findings? Are there alternative explanations? It also means examining our own biases. We all have mental filters that skew how we interpret new information. Conspiracy theories often rely on the fact that people who already doubt mainstream explanations are more likely to accept an elaborate hidden scenario. Meanwhile, those who deeply trust established institutions might reject valid criticisms too quickly. The key is to recognize these tendencies and try to balance them, so we're not shutting out new truths or letting ourselves be carried away by every rumor. None of this has to mean giving up the thrill of the unknown. In fact, carefully balanced curiosity can heighten that excitement. Imagine you're out in nature, searching for unusual animals. You don't want to jump at every rustle in the bushes, assuming it's a legendary creature, nor do you want to walk around with blinders on, ignoring potential clues. If you remain alert, gather clear evidence, tracks, droppings, photographs, consistent sightings, you can build a case that something truly unusual lives in the area. That process of discovery is exhilarating. Each new piece of data feels like a piece of a puzzle, stirring the same wonder you might have felt as a child opening a mysterious box. The difference is that your sense of wonder now dances with patience and method, ensuring you're not chasing illusions. The same principle applies to the cosmic scale. If we discover a weird reading in a telescope, a signal that doesn't match known phenomena, we can't jump straight to aliens are calling. But we also shouldn't bury the data. Instead, we share it, cross-check with other observatories, try to rule out instrumentation errors or natural cosmic events, and keep building a case. If all possible natural explanations fail, then yes, maybe we're inching closer to something groundbreaking. In that sense, the careful investigation process is not a dull chore but a gateway to breakthroughs that can reshape our entire understanding of reality. Of course, we must also remember that the unknown is not just out there, in space, or hidden in government files. It's also inside us. Many of the greatest conspiracies or controversies revolve around the mind, human psychology, collective illusions, the boundaries of perception. Why do some people see ghosts where others see reflections of light? Why do some trust intangible feelings more than logical proof? Our minds play tricks on us, whether through confirmation bias, spotting only the evidence that supports what we already believe, or pattern-seeking tendencies that make us see meaning in random data. If we accept that we're all prone to such mental quirks, we might become a bit more forgiving toward people who land on bizarre conclusions. We realize that under the right conditions, any of us can be seduced by a narrative that feels good or solves a nagging question. It's also worth noting the emotional side of these mysteries. Sometimes, holding on to a grand conspiracy or an unorthodox belief offers comfort when the world feels chaotic. If mainstream explanations fail to soothe your anxieties about war, disease, economic turmoil, or the fate of the planet, A compelling theory about hidden overlords or advanced technologies might seem like the missing piece. Even if it's grim, it can feel empowering to say, "Now I see the truth behind everything." This emotional dimension is why debunking false claims with facts alone often fails to sway believers. The belief might be tied to a deeper psychological need, hope, fear, belonging, that logical arguments alone can't unravel. So how do we talk to someone who believes wholeheartedly in a conspiratorial worldview? Often, the first step is listening. Resist the urge to label them as foolish or gullible. Hear them out, ask them where they got their information, and try to understand the emotional undercurrent. Show genuine curiosity about their perspective. Then, gently introduce your own questions. Have you considered this alternative explanation? Is there a way we could test that idea? What evidence would change your mind? If they're open at all, they might start examining their own thought process. And if they're not, well, at least you've shown respect instead of scorn, which might keep the door open for future conversations. In a world flooded by information, from social media posts to 24-hour news cycles, our challenge is to cultivate a personal filter that lets wonder through but screens out manipulative or poorly grounded claims. Think of it like building an internal library of methods, reference, and standards for proof. You learn to weigh the credibility of sources, check for biases, compare multiple viewpoints, and remain mindful of your own emotional triggers. None of this kills the magic of exploring the unknown. It simply ensures the magic is more authentic. Instead of illusions conjured by rumor, we aim for genuine awe sparked by something verifiable, or at least something that stands up to thoughtful investigation. Perhaps one of the most beautiful outcomes of balancing wonder with evidence is the sense of connection it brings. When you honestly explore a mystery in collaboration with others, comparing notes, double-checking theories, staying open to correction, you build trust. You join a legacy of seekers that span centuries. From ancient astronomers charting stars with the naked eye to modern-day researchers analyzing gravitational waves with ultra-precise detectors. And you tap into the same curiosity that drove early sailors to cross uncharted seas, or mathematicians to puzzle over prime numbers. In each case, the impetus is to push the envelope of what we accept as known, not to retreat into illusions when the path gets difficult. Consider how this approach might play out with some of humanity's oldest unanswered questions. Are we being visited by extraterrestrials? Do mysterious creatures roam remote corners of Earth? Is there an afterlife, some dimension of reality we can't measure directly? These are profound riddles that have spawned countless theories, conspiracies, and debates. We can't conclusively prove or disprove all of them yet, but we can remain open, letting our curiosity spark lines of investigation, while demanding real tests whenever possible. We can join groups that look for evidence in structured ways, or read up on the latest research in physics, biology, and consciousness studies. We can hold a gentle, flexible mindset that says, "I don't know for sure, but I'm excited to find out." When we adopt that stance, we neither cling to blind certainty nor tumble into the trap of believing every rumor that crosses our path. Mysteries also play a role in how we handle everyday life. The same mental patterns that lead someone to suspect hidden puppet masters at the global level can appear in smaller circles, workplace gossip, family rumors, or local controversies. Suddenly, a coworker's strange behavior might be chalked up to a sinister plan, when in fact they're just going through personal struggles. Or a neighbor's random nightly noises become a sign of clandestine activity rather than squeaky pipes. If you practice balancing wonder and skepticism in your daily interactions, checking facts, listening deeply, and acknowledging you might not have the full picture, you'll likely become more compassionate, more resilient, and maybe a little wiser in navigating conflicts. Yet even the wisest approach can leave us feeling overwhelmed sometimes. Perhaps you've had moments where you realize just how enormous the unknown truly is, not just in cosmic terms but in the countless motives, fears, and secrets swirling among human beings. It can be daunting to realize that you can't possibly verify every claim or chase down every rumor. Part of growing up, both as an individual and as a society, is learning to coexist with uncertainty. That doesn't mean giving up on truth. It means recognizing that truth can be elusive, multi-layered, and slow to reveal itself, and that our best method is to inch toward it with steady, careful steps. When you accept the inevitability of uncertainty, the unknown transforms from a monster under the bed to a vast playground for curiosity. You might find yourself more comfortable saying, "I'm not sure yet, but let's explore," or "Here's what we know so far, and here's what we still need to find out." That shift in perspective can spark creativity. Instead of seeing a gap in knowledge as a terrifying void, you see it as a canvas where fresh insights might blossom. And in that sense, you carry forward the spirit of explorers, inventors, and philosophers who recognize that each question is a doorway, not a dead end. On a personal level, it can help to cultivate small rituals of inquiry. You might take a daily moment to read about a scientific discovery, watch a short documentary on a puzzling phenomenon, or practice a bit of mindfulness to observe how your own biases shape your reactions to news and rumors. Over time, this habit of gentle inquiry trains your mind to be both open and grounded. You begin to see patterns, notice reliable sources, and develop a gut sense for when something needs more scrutiny. You also become more tolerant of those who reach different conclusions, understanding that each of us is on a path shaped by our backgrounds, experiences, and influences. We're all trying, in our own ways, to make sense of a world that can be breathtakingly complex. Eventually, you might find yourself mentoring others, perhaps gently guiding a friend away from a conspiracy rabbit hole or encouraging someone who's too dismissive to reconsider an unconventional idea. The best mentors in these situations use empathy and patience rather than ridicule. They remember what it's like to be swept up by an exciting hypothesis or to be stubbornly locked into a single viewpoint. By sharing what you've learned, how to cross-check facts, how to let curiosity thrive without sacrificing logic, you can help others maintain that luminous spark of wonder while staying tethered to something real. All of this circles back to the fundamental question of why mysteries captivate us so deeply. You can sense the answer in the goosebumps you get when you hear a compelling conspiracy, the awe you feel at a mind-blowing astronomical discovery, and the cautious fascination that creeps in when you suspect there's more to a story than meets the eye. We're drawn to the unknown because it symbolizes freedom from the limits of our current perspective. It beckons us to expand what we consider possible, to test the borders of our knowledge. At the same time, it reminds us of our fragility, our ignorance, and the humbling notion that reality might not always align with our hopes or fears. That push and pull, between wanting to believe in something grand and fearing we'll fall prey to illusions, keeps us on our toes. It's what drives us to question, to dig deeper, and to learn. The real magic emerges when we discover that bridging this gap can be a shared pursuit. Instead of dividing into camps of true believers and hardened skeptics, we can come together under a banner of respectful curiosity. We can say, the world is mysterious, but we can explore these mysteries together, combining imagination with rigor, caution with wonder. In this way, the unknown ceases to be a battleground of conspiracies and debunkers and becomes a place of collective growth. Bit by bit, we unravel the threads, celebrating small victories, a new scientific finding, a well-supported theory, a more refined understanding of how humans think, and acknowledging that there will always be new puzzles to chase. The horizon keeps receding, but that's the beauty of it. We're not finishing a book. We're living in a never-ending story, each chapter a new chance to glean insights about ourselves, our universe, and the astonishing tapestry of existence. So as you stand at the edge of that winding road again, under the same twilight sky, let yourself feel the gentle pull of the unknown. Hear the crickets fade into the background, sense the hush that settles over the land when night fully arrives. It's in that hush that your mind can wander, free from the static of daily demands. Maybe you'll recall a rumor you once believed and how you discovered it wasn't true. Maybe you'll remember a theory you once dismissed, only to learn it had merit. Perhaps you'll think of people who guided you, or those you've guided in turn, and the many ways you've grown from confronting mysteries with open eyes. The night air feels charged with possibility, inviting you to keep asking questions, to keep examining your own beliefs, to keep forging that delicate balance between childlike awe and adult discernment. This is the doorway. The rest is your choice, whether you walk forward with humility and courage, or turn away and let the wonder fade. But if you do choose to continue, you'll join a lineage of explorers who understood that the deeper you venture into the unknown, the more you learn about the universe, and the more you discover about yourself. Strange events on Earth. Imagine, just for a moment, that you're standing at the base of a towering mountain under a moonlit sky. The air is crisp, and each breath you take feels like a small taste of infinity. Overhead, stars shimmer like distant lanterns, and you sense the ancient pull of something both familiar and utterly unknown. You might recall the same feeling when you stared out over an ocean that stretched beyond the horizon, or when you walked through an old forest and heard nothing but the rustle of leaves in a breeze you couldn't predict. That quiet, heart-stirring sense is more than just awe. It's the realization that your everyday world sits on the edge of something boundless, an undiscovered country that calls to you by name. By now, you've traveled with us through the early stirrings of wonder, the lure of unsolved mysteries, and the delicate boundary that separates open curiosity from the tangled brambles of conspiracy and unfounded belief. But there's another layer we haven't touched as deeply yet, one that's woven through our history, shaping both our greatest achievements and our darkest moments. It's the way we reach beyond our own limits, seeking truths that lie outside our comfort zones, and how we sometimes stumble when evidence is scarce but our dreams are big. In this segment, let's delve into the idea of going further than we thought we could, of taking leaps of faith or logic, sometimes landing on solid ground and sometimes plunging into murky depths. Because whether we conquer new frontiers or get lost in illusions, the drive behind it all remains the same, that unquenchable thirst to see what lies beyond the next horizon. Think of a time when you felt an internal push to explore something, even though you weren't sure it was safe or real. Maybe you woke in the middle of the night, compelled to step outside and look at the stars, hoping to glimpse a meteor or a faint swirl of the Milky Way. Or maybe you found yourself drawn to an unusual book in a dusty library corner, flipping through pages about ancient civilizations, archaic symbols, or lost continents. There's a certain thrill in venturing off the well-trodden path, even if it's just in your imagination. That thrill can feel like a gust of wind filling the sails of a ship, pushing you toward uncharted waters no matter how rational or irrational it might seem. Yet it's in these uncharted waters that we risk both finding hidden treasures and wandering into dangerous illusions. History shows us that leaps of discovery often begin with a hunch or a guess. A scientist notices a pattern in the data that nobody else sees. An adventurer suspects there's land across the sea, even when most believe only endless ocean awaits. A philosopher wonders if reality is different from how we commonly perceive it, opening the door to profound ideas that challenge everything we think we know. But not every guess holds water. Some become elaborate detours, built on rumor, fear, or wishful thinking, only to collapse when tested against reality. So, in that swirling mix of curiosity and doubt, breakthroughs emerge that can change how we see the entire universe. For instance, the idea of traveling to the moon. For most of human history, the notion that we could leave Earth's surface, let alone land on another celestial body, sounded like pure fantasy. Poets wrote about it, dreamers conjured images of stepping onto lunar soil, but the practical mind scoffed. You can't just escape gravity. That's not how reality works. Then, in the mid-20th century, spurred by global rivalry and technological leaps, we built rockets powerful enough to break free of Earth's pull. We didn't simply dream it, we made it happen, turning speculation into astonishing fact. But consider how easily that story might have gone another way. If earlier rocket tests had failed repeatedly, if certain scientific principles had been misunderstood, if the push for proof had come up short, we might have dismissed moon travel as an impossible fantasy. Instead, the daring combination of dream and method led us to plant footprints on lunar dust. Now reflect on something less triumphant, the many times large groups of people have fallen into mass delusions or moral panics, convinced of threats that later turned out to be imaginary. Think of the witch trials centuries ago, where rumors, fear, and superstition whipped entire communities into a frenzy of accusations, torture, and execution. Or times when a scientific-sounding claim seduced the world, only for it to be debunked years later, sometimes after real harm was done. These cautionary tales remind us that the line between visionary leaps and dangerous illusions is often blurred in the moment. Without careful testing, an exciting new idea can become the seed of a harmful mania. Without an anchor in verifiable evidence, that potent spark of curiosity can ignite into a fire that burns everyone in its path. So how do we keep pushing forward, aiming for new breakthroughs, without letting ourselves be swallowed by illusions? Part of the answer lies in the very nature of science as a communal activity. One person's bright idea, be it about interstellar travel, quantum computing, or the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, is tested by others. The more eyes that examine it, the more rigorous the experiments, the more we weed out the illusions. Yet even in science, illusions sometimes persist for decades if the data is ambiguous or if the topic is so emotionally charged that biases creep in. The best we can do is remain vigilant, open-minded but skeptical, recognizing that every leap of faith must eventually land on the ground of tested truth, or fail trying. But the greatest leaps aren't always about technology or cosmic journeys. Sometimes, the biggest frontier is in our own heads. You might feel this when you stare into a mirror late at night, noticing how odd it is that you exist at all, that you're a being capable of thinking about thinking. Or when you question whether free will is real or just an elaborate dance of neurons and physics. You might venture into spiritual or philosophical realms, asking if there's more to consciousness than biology, if there's a soul, if there's a cosmic plan. These questions can't easily be probed with a telescope or a particle accelerator. They require a different sort of exploration, one that balances introspection with reason, personal experience with shared dialogue. And yet, the same risk applies. We can be led astray by wishful thinking or by charismatic figures who promise easy answers. We can seize onto beliefs that feel comforting but lack substance. Or we can remain so rigidly skeptical that we never allow ourselves to glimpse any deeper possibilities. The challenge is learning to walk this line, to stay honest about what we truly know while keeping a candle lit for what we might one day discover. Imagine you're hiking through a vast, unfamiliar landscape. Some areas are well lit, carefully mapped out over centuries of exploration, like established scientific facts about gravity, evolution, or the structure of atoms. Other areas are half-lit, where we have partial knowledge, like many fields of medicine or climate science. And then there are dark pockets, the corners of the map marked, "Here be dragons," where speculation is high and data is sparse. We explore those dark corners with trepidation and excitement, drawing on any clues we can find. In some corners, we might discover new wonders, extinct species that aren't really extinct, deep-sea creatures beyond our wildest dreams, or fundamental laws of physics that might unify what we thought were contradictory theories. In other corners, we might find nothing but illusions, flickers of false light that vanish as we approach. This is why the personal attitude we bring to these explorations matters so much. Some people treat any unknown as an opportunity to weave grand conspiracies. Maybe they claim a secret society wields technology centuries ahead of what we know, or that hidden alien bases under the oceans guide human events. Others treat the unknown with derision, dismissing all speculation as nonsense. Both extremes, in their own way, shut the door on honest inquiry. The first leaps over the evidence gap without caution. The second refuses to leap at all, missing potential revelations that might come from challenging conventional wisdom. The sweet spot is a posture of engaged wonder, where we're neither gullible nor dismissive, willing to imagine new possibilities but also to test them against what we can measure or logically infer. Consider something that used to be the stuff of science fiction but is edging closer to reality: the concept of creating artificial intelligence that truly thinks or feels. There are bold claims that such an entity could already be lurking in the labs of tech giants, quietly shaping our collective future. Others argue that consciousness can't be replicated by mere algorithms, that there's a spark in the human mind that can't be coded. For every piece of scientific progress on neural networks, you'll find someone warning of AI taking over, weaving doomsday scenarios around a grain of truth. Are they illusions, or are they glimpses of a possible tomorrow we should be preparing for? To sort these questions out, we rely on evidence, but also on a measure of humility. We don't truly know the upper limits of AI or the precise nature of consciousness. We're explorers in a dimly lit corridor, seeing shapes that could be doorways or dead ends. We use the tools of science, peer review, repeatable experiments, theoretical modeling, to move forward without stumbling into the abyss. Yet we also keep alive that childlike wonder. Maybe consciousness can arise from circuits. Maybe we'll soon speak to synthetic minds that puzzle over existence as we do. Or maybe not. That open question fuels research, reflection, and a certain poetic fascination with the boundaries between machines and living minds. You can find countless similar frontiers in every corner of human inquiry. Neuroscientists probe the chemistry of love or creativity, revealing that these emotions and sparks might be explained by neural activity. But does that reduce love or creativity to mere biology, or is there some intangible quality left unexplained? Archaeologists discover lost cities in remote jungles, rewriting our history books, while cryptozoologists chase myths of strange creatures that might or might not exist. Space agencies plan missions to icy moons like Europa or Enceladus, suspecting hidden oceans that might harbor alien microbes. Geneticists tinker with CRISPR-based gene editing, raising the possibility of designer babies or resurrected extinct species. Everywhere we look, we stand on shifting ground, caught between the thrill of possibility and the sobering knowledge that we've been wrong before and will be wrong again. In the midst of all this, wonder can act like a compass pointing us forward, but it's a compass that doesn't always show clear directions. Sometimes it quivers, drawn by illusions that appear like magnetic anomalies. Sometimes it aligns with evidence, guiding us toward real discoveries. The skill we need is not to throw the compass away, but to learn how to read it properly, staying aware of its limitations. We can cultivate that skill by doing what explorers have always done: comparing notes, confirming what we find with others, being skeptical of shortcuts, and always asking for more details when a claim sounds too tidy or too convenient. Think about how this approach affects your day-to-day life. Maybe you see a viral post about a miraculous cure, an ancient prophecy that seems eerily accurate, or a scientific-sounding hack that promises extraordinary results. Instead of immediately embracing or dismissing it, you pause. You let your wonder perk up. Could this be true? But you also reach for rational checks. Who conducted this study? What do other sources say? Is there a way to replicate these findings or test them yourself? If the claims crumble under scrutiny, you move on, a bit wiser and less prone to gullibility. If they hold up, you add a new piece to your mental map, expanding your understanding of what's possible. Either way, you maintain that delicate balance between amazement and caution. But expand this habit of mind to the grander scale, our collective journey as a civilization. We stand at the threshold of technologies that could reshape our planet or even our species. We face ecological challenges that demand urgent action, yet the complexity of ecosystems can tempt us to oversimplify or place blame on mythical conspirators. The same desire that leads us to fantastic breakthroughs can also breed catastrophic mistakes if we fail to check illusions at the door. We can't just rely on experts in white lab coats or politicians with polished speeches. We need a cultural ethic of wonder tempered by verification, a shared willingness to consider bold ideas but also to demand robust evidence before overhauling our world. This ethic has to live in classrooms, in community gatherings, in social media discussions, and yes, even in how we talk to our children about the unknown. Children are perhaps the purest vessels of wonder. The ones who ask why the sky is blue or if animals can talk or whether stars have birthdays. They approach these mysteries without the filters of jaded adulthood. Their readiness to believe can be enchanting, But it can also lead them astray if they're not guided gently toward investigating how things really work. That guidance shouldn't kill their sense of wonder. It should refine it. A child who learns to use a magnifying glass to look at the veins in a leaf or a telescope to see the moons of Jupiter gains a deeper awe than one who's merely told that magic did it. They learn that the world is indeed magical, but its magic is woven into real structures and laws that we can, with patience, learn to understand. That same spirit can guide us at any age, fueling a lifetime of fascination rather than disillusion. It's easy to forget, amid our sophisticated technologies and scientific achievements, that we remain a species of storytellers, weaving narratives to explain the inexplicable. Sometimes those narratives are epic expansions of our understanding, like the tale of cosmic inflation that describes how the universe ballooned from an infinitesimal speck. Sometimes they're cautionary parables of hubris, like the myth of Icarus flying too close to the sun. Sometimes they're conspiratorial illusions that evoke shadowy forces controlling us from behind the scenes. And sometimes they're deeply personal fables we construct to cope with grief, fear, or the complexity of our inner lives. In every case, these stories feed on our desire to shape the unknown into a form we can grasp, even if that form is provisional, subject to change when new data arrives. The question becomes, how do we keep writing these stories in a way that fosters growth, not conflict or stagnation? One key is empathy, recognizing that the person who clings to a bizarre-sounding theory might be doing so out of a genuine hunger for meaning or a deep-seated mistrust formed by past betrayals. Another key is wonder itself, understanding that we all share a longing to peek behind the curtain, to see if the world is more mysterious, more extraordinary than we've been told. Even in disagreements, we can find common ground by focusing on the fact that we all crave answers, that we all sense the staggering mystery of existence, whether we express it through science or spiritual reflection. Imagine sitting around a campfire with people from vastly different backgrounds, some devoutly religious, some staunchly atheistic, some enthralled by UFO lore, some fervently rational. The conversation might initially be tense, but as the flames flicker and the stars come out, you all realize you share that primal awe at the immensity overhead. You might debate vigorously, does that bright spot moving across the sky have a mundane explanation, or is it something out of this world? With good faith and patience, you can trade evidence, hypotheses, and perspectives. You might not end up agreeing, but you'll have sharpened each other's viewpoints, shedding the illusions that can't stand up to honest scrutiny while preserving the questions that remain compelling and mysterious. That is the heart of collective wonder, an ever-evolving, participatory dance where each of us brings our own experiences and insights, weaving them together into a tapestry that's richer than any single thread. As you read these words, think of the grandest mystery you've encountered. Maybe it's a question about the far future of humanity, or the nature of the soul, or the meaning of life. Ask yourself how you've approached that mystery. Have you read widely, tested the edges of your assumptions, or sought out people who disagree with you to refine your ideas? Have you let your imagination run wild in the quiet hours, only to anchor it later by checking whether your thoughts align with known facts? Or have you swung toward cynicism or credulity when the conversation gets too tangled? Reflect on these habits, because they shape not only your personal journey but also the broader narrative of who we become as explorers of reality. We might never tie everything up in a neat bow. Some mysteries could stay just out of reach, teasing us with glimpses that never coalesce into certainty. Yet in pursuing them, we expand our capacity for wonder and wisdom. Think of an artist who never settles for the first rough sketch but keeps adding layers of color, shading, and detail, each pass revealing new depth. Our understanding of the universe is like that canvas, always a work in progress. And ironically, the more we uncover, the more we realize how much more there is to learn. That's the paradox of knowledge. Every new answer spawns a dozen new questions, each beckoning us further. So here we are, at this point in our shared journey, having traveled through the complexities of curiosity, its gifts, its pitfalls, its role in pushing us beyond what we thought possible. We've seen how it can lead to breakthroughs that redefine the human experience, as well as illusions that ensnare minds seeking easy explanations. We've touched on science as a form of organized wonder, tested by experiment, and on the personal leaps of faith we sometimes make when no data can fully resolve our doubts or our hopes. We've noted the importance of community, how no single individual, no matter how brilliant or intuitive, can fully chart the unknown alone. Where does that leave us? Perhaps with a gentle invitation to move forward with eyes wide open and hearts ready to be astonished. Embrace the next strange theory you hear, not as truth but as a spark that might guide you to hidden corners of the map. Challenge it. Compare it to what's known. Invite others to share their insights. Respect the possibility that you might be wrong, or that you might be onto something nobody else has noticed. Cultivate patience with the slow unfolding of facts and the personal growth that comes from wrestling with large ideas. And when you feel that familiar pinch of uncertainty, that moment where your mind teeters between wonder and fear, see if you can lean into curiosity rather than back away. Remember that we are all children in a sense, peeking into a universe too vast for any one person to master. Imagine how the world might change if we collectively adopted that stance. Leaders who made decisions with a respectful nod to what they didn't know. Scientists who welcomed bold new theories while maintaining rigorous checks. Educators who taught students not just facts but also how to navigate the boundary between wonder and illusion. Our greatest leaps would remain possible, but we might reduce the harm done by misguided fantasies. We would remain dreamers, but dreamers who've learned to test the soil before building castles on it. If you close your eyes now, you might picture that vast cosmos again, a silent night sky, endless waves of stars fading into the black. Picture your own life as a tiny speck of awareness in that immensity. Does this thought make you feel insignificant, or does it ignite a sense of belonging to something grand and unfinished? In truth, both feelings are valid, and both can spur you to keep seeking. Significance doesn't have to be measured by size. A single idea, a single experiment, a single open-minded conversation can shift the trajectory of understanding for everyone. When you realize that, you see that your spark of curiosity is part of a roaring blaze humanity has tended for millennia, a blaze that illuminates and warms us, yet leaves distant corners still cloaked in shadow, calling us forward. We stand at the threshold of new chapters, chapters that might explore gravitational waves rippling through space-time, or the subtle quantum processes that might link consciousness and matter, or the stewardship of a planet on which we're beginning to realize we hold tremendous power and responsibility. Each chapter is a test of how we handle wonder. Will we leap too far without grounding? Will we cling so tightly to old frameworks that we fail to see the new? Or will we navigate that middle path, continuing to expand our sphere of understanding with each carefully placed step, guided by an ever-evolving sense of awe? As we move into these future segments of our exploration, keep that question alive. Let it color your view of the mysteries we'll tackle next. Let it remind you that the unknown is a living tapestry, woven from our best theories, wildest guesses, experimental data, imaginative leaps, and the quiet, persistent vigilance of those who insist on evidence. Above all, remember that you're not just an observer on the sidelines. You're an active participant in the grand dance of discovery. Each question you whisper into the night, each stray curiosity you pursue in a library or online forum, each conversation you have that challenges your assumptions, these small acts feed the collective momentum that has carried us from cave paintings to cosmic surveys. So take a breath. Let your mind settle into the starlit hush of possibility. Feel that old, unmistakable tug of wonder. Let it remind you that every new horizon we reach is just the start of another journey. We might never know if there's a final boundary out there, a point at which all questions are answered. But perhaps that's the real gift of existence, to be forever en route, always discovering that the path goes on, that the world is bigger than we guessed, that we ourselves are bigger on the inside than we dared to hope. In that realization, you find not just knowledge but a profound sense of connection to all who came before and all who will come after. In your own way, a keeper of the human flame, carrying it forward, passing it on, letting it illuminate whatever new vistas await us on this ongoing adventure. And so, in this fourth chapter of our deepening journey, let's reaffirm that wonder is our heritage and our compass. Let's accept that illusions can and will appear, some mesmerizing, some dangerous, and that our best defense is neither blind skepticism nor uncritical faith but an ever-curious mind that pairs evidence with imagination. Let's stand ready to be wrong, to be dazzled, to be drawn out of our shells by truths more astonishing than any fiction. For the world is vast, our time here is fleeting, and every corner of reality we illuminate stands as a testament to the stubborn brilliance of a species that, despite all its flaws, can't help peering into the shadows for one more flicker of revelation. So press on. Press on with your questions, your doubts, your half-formed theories, your lingering childlike amazement. Press on, not because the road is guaranteed to be easy or straightforward, but because we sense, deep in our bones, that this is what makes us truly alive. Press on in the knowledge that together, we've already accomplished feats once deemed impossible, and we're poised to attempt more. Press on, aware that we might not reach every answer, but certain that the journey itself enriches us beyond measure. And above all, press on because that spark, the same one our ancestors felt beneath starry skies, still glows within you, waiting to illuminate the next chapter of the unknown. From conspiracy to science, picture yourself leaning against a weathered wooden fence, gazing out at a sprawling landscape as dusk settles into night. In the far distance, hills roll gently into the horizon, their silhouettes dissolving into purple shadows. The sky above you brims with the quiet glow of stars emerging, one by one, like tiny promises that there's always more to see. The air carries a hint of coolness, and with it, the sensation that the world isn't just what it appears by day, that behind familiar fields and hills lie endless depths of possibility. You sense the same force that once drove people to set sail across uncharted oceans or to scan the heavens for signs of distant planets. Maybe you feel a pulse of excitement, the same quiet thrill that's guided us through the first 4 segments of our journey, a reminder that there's always another horizon to cross, another unknown waiting to be explored. As you stand there in the gathering dark, let your mind wander back over what we've discovered so far. We've talked about wonder, that spark that makes you look up at the night sky and ask yourself big questions. We've explored how unsolved mysteries can tug at us, how conspiracies and illusions might arise when evidence is scarce but our imaginations are strong, and how we balance curiosity with rational thinking to keep ourselves from straying too far into fantasy. We've touched on how science, at its best, is a collective, self-correcting enterprise that allows us to venture bravely into the unknown, then test our findings against reality. We've even ventured into the frontiers of consciousness, AI, and the intangible mysteries that live inside our own minds. Yet all of these threads connect in one persistent theme. Humans have an innate hunger to see beyond our present limits, to question what we think we know, and to believe in something larger than our day-to-day concerns. But there's one facet we've only brushed against, the subtle yet powerful role that communities, cultures, and shared belief systems play in shaping what we choose to explore, how we interpret what we find, and how we decide whether to treat a new claim as legitimate or out there. We like to imagine that each of us is an individual seeker, forging our own path toward truth or wonder. In a sense, that's true, but we can't ignore how deeply our surroundings influence us. We are social creatures, and the groups we belong to, our families, friends, traditions, and even the broader scientific community, affect what we see as worth investigating, which mysteries we respect, and which we dismiss as nonsense. Consider a simple example. Suppose you grew up in a household that valued open-minded dialogue, where your parents encouraged you to ask questions about anything from the color of the sky to the origins of the universe. Perhaps you had bookshelves lined with astronomy picture books or mythology from various cultures, so you saw from an early age that different civilizations have tried to interpret the same mysteries in different ways. Contrast that with a person who grew up in a home that insisted on one rigid worldview, where all phenomena must fit a predetermined story, leaving no room for alternatives. These two upbringings produce different approaches to wonder, curiosity, and skepticism. The first person might treat mysteries as invitations, the second as threats to an established order. Neither is guaranteed to be right or wrong about every particular question, but each is shaped by the social environment that taught them how to react to the unexplained. Now expand this idea to entire societies. In some eras, asking too many questions could get you labeled a heretic, so or worse. In others, you might be celebrated as a pioneer. Even today, different cultures have varied attitudes toward the unknown. Some embrace it with festivals and folklore. Some prefer to channel it through structured religious or scientific institutions. Others ridicule or repress it out of fear. We often think of ourselves as rational beings, but how we respond to that nudge of wonder can depend on the background hum of collective beliefs swirling around us. This matters because it's never just about discovering truths in isolation. The moment you find something new or propose a radical idea, be it that the Earth orbits the Sun, that time and space are relative, or that life might exist on other planets, you're stepping into a web of social judgments. Are you a genius or a crank? Are you challenging orthodoxy in a constructive way or undermining the foundations of shared reality? Will the community rally around you, test your claims, and revise its knowledge in light of your discoveries, or will it reject you outright? These aren't just academic questions. They shape the fate of entire fields of research, the direction of technological progress, and even the future of societies that either adapt to new insights or cling to outdated dogmas. Throughout history, certain cultures have thrived by incorporating new findings, no matter how unsettling, while others collapsed under the weight of denying evident realities. You might recall how ancient astronomers in different civilizations mapped stars and planets, sometimes converging on eerily similar observations that led them to refine their calendars or predict eclipses. Or how medical breakthroughs in one region eventually spread worldwide, saving millions of lives, once the cultural barriers to adopting foreign ideas had been overcome. On the flip side, we've also seen great catastrophes when entire populations refuse to adapt to new information, be it about environmental changes, diseases, or social revolutions, choosing instead to guard old certainties until the evidence of their eyes became impossible to ignore. This interplay of communal acceptance and personal wonder is not static. It evolves. Take modern social media, for instance. Never before have so many minds been connected in real time, exchanging facts, theories, rumors, conspiracies, and revelations at lightning speed. On one hand, this interconnected world can accelerate discovery. Scientists can share data across continents. Amateurs can analyze images from space telescopes, and grassroots campaigns can fund exploration projects once reserved for elite institutions. On the other hand, it can also amplify confusion. Half-formed ideas, disinformation, or sensational claims can spread virally, overshadowing careful research or fracturing public trust. In this swirling mix, how do we hold onto the spark of wonder, the curiosity that drives real breakthroughs, while keeping ourselves grounded in credible methods? Part of the answer lies in a renewed commitment to teaching the tools of critical thinking. That doesn't mean quashing imagination or telling people which theories are allowed. It means equipping them with ways to test ideas, weigh evidence, and collaborate in refining or dismissing claims based on logic rather than tribe or gut emotion. Imagine, alongside reading and math, schools emphasized from an early age how to investigate a claim, how to identify sources, how to replicate a simple experiment, how to evaluate the strength of an argument, and how to have respectful, evidence-based debates. Over time, such an approach could nurture a culture that sees wonder not as a threat to reason but as its partner, a catalyst for exploration that's then tested by shared, transparent methods. But even if we teach those tools, we have to acknowledge that wonder has an emotional pull. We're not just brains crunching data, we're hearts responding to the lure of the mysterious. Some mysteries make us feel safe and excited, like the possibility of new animals in remote jungles, while others strike at deep existential fears, like the inevitability of death or the potential for cataclysmic changes in our environment. Our emotional reactions can distort what we're willing to believe or investigate. If we're terrified of losing a cherished belief system, we might reject evidence that contradicts it. If we're enthralled by a new cosmic possibility, we might overlook red flags that it's too good to be true. Emotions, then, become part of the lens that either sharpens or blurs our vision, depending on how we navigate them. In this sense, community can serve as a kind of emotional support system for confronting the unknown. If you know that your circle of peers, or fellow explorers will stand by you even if your findings challenge the status quo, as long as you've done your due diligence, then you're more likely to push the boundaries. Conversely, if you fear ridicule or ostracism, you might keep your head down, ignoring the spark that urges you to look deeper. Many crucial scientific advances came about because individuals dared to say, "I see something odd here, and I'm going to keep looking, even if everyone thinks I'm crazy," only to be vindicated when the evidence piled too high to be denied. Yet, not everyone who claims to be a brave outsider is on the path to genuine discovery. Some stand outside the mainstream because they choose fantasy over fact or twist data to fit a personal narrative. The line between a Galileo, persecuted for championing heliocentrism, and a modern conspiracist spinning false webs about shape-shifting aliens can be murky to the untrained eye. Both might claim they're just pushing beyond orthodoxy. So, as a community, how do we tell them apart? The short answer is still evidence, shared, reproducible, logically consistent. If your claims hold up under scrutiny by others who have no stake in your success or failure, then you may be onto something real. If they collapse under repeated tests, or if you refuse to let anyone test them at all, you're leaning toward unproductive illusion. That's where trust comes in. Trust in the process of inquiry, trust in the integrity of data, trust that even if you question mainstream assumptions, you're doing so within a framework where others can fairly evaluate your claims. This trust isn't blind, it's earned through transparent methods, open debates, and a willingness to correct mistakes. When communities lose that trust, when every data set is suspect and every institution is seen as corrupt, wonder can mutate into paranoia. The shared scaffolding that supports the search for truth collapses, leaving isolated pockets of people each convinced only they hold the real keys to reality. In that scenario, we risk turning wonder into chaos, each group locked in its own narrative with no common ground to build upon. This erosion of trust, ironically, often stems from real instances of betrayal or misinformation. When experts or leaders lie or manipulate facts for personal gain, it taints the credibility of entire systems. In the vacuum of trust, conspiracies flourish, promising that behind every official story lies a puppet master. The antidote isn't to sneer at those who believe such stories, but to rebuild integrity at every level, from robust peer review in science, to ethical media practices, to open governance that demonstrates accountability. Only then can the flame of wonder burn brightly without casting monstrous shadows. Imagine a future where, instead of sensational headlines or echo chambers, we have platforms dedicated to collaborative sense-making. People worldwide gather online not just to argue but to share data, replicate experiments, and refine interpretations, like a perpetual science fair that anyone can join. Picture a school system that embraces local mysteries, strange rock formations, legends of hidden creatures, or odd atmospheric phenomena, and uses them as case studies to teach the steps of investigation, the rigors of documentation, and the thrill of discovery. Or communities that set aside wonder weekends to explore big questions, inviting speakers from various fields, organizing stargazing sessions, or filming local anomalies with the intent to analyze them methodically. In such a world, wonder becomes a unifying force rather than a source of division. Stepping back for a moment, let's return to the night sky you're gazing at while leaning on that wooden fence. Overhead, constellations shift in ancient patterns, the same patterns that guided sailors and desert nomads millennia ago, the same lights that sparked myths of gods and beasts, the same cosmic tapestry that modern astronomers dissect with telescopes orbiting Earth. If you let your eyes roam, you might catch a faint glow that hints at the Milky Way's dusty band. You might recall that each speck of light could be a sun, some with planets circling them, and wonder whether life stirs in those distant systems. It's a cosmic puzzle, at once intimate and unfathomable. We've come a long way in understanding that puzzle. We've identified exoplanets by the thousands, measured the expansion of the universe, even taken the first pictures of black holes. And yet the puzzle remains so vast that each discovery feels like a grain of sand on an endless shoreline. That sense of humility is central to wonder. It prevents us from growing arrogant with partial knowledge, reminds us that every time we think we've pinned reality down, new questions emerge from the edges of our understanding. In this humility lies hope. For as long as mysteries remain, our story is not finished. There are chapters yet to write, adventures we can't anticipate, theories that will one day seem as obvious as the roundness of Earth does to us now. In that spirit, let's turn our thoughts to how we handle revelations that challenge our worldview. Sometimes these revelations arrive suddenly, a comet blazing across the sky that defies known patterns, or a scientific result that contradicts established theories. Other times they creep up slowly, the way evidence for Earth's changing climate built up over decades before people realized the scale of what was happening. Whether fast or slow, such moments test our community's capacity to adapt. Do we resist, clinging to comfortable illusions? Do we fractally balkanize into factions, each fighting to impose its narrative? Or do we come together, admit uncertainty where it exists, and say, let's figure this out? The notion of figuring it out might sound simple, but it's rarely easy. It means devoting time and resources to inquiry, admitting that some old convictions might need to be revised. It means welcoming the contributions of those who see patterns we've missed, while still insisting that they back up their claims with evidence. It means forging alliances among people who might disagree on many points yet share the goal of a clearer, more accurate picture of reality. This is an ongoing process, a social conversation that can take years or decades, fueled by the same curiosity that led ancient stargazers to record planetary movements long before they knew what planets really were. Now consider how this plays out in everyday life. You might not be part of a grand expedition to uncover cosmic secrets, but you do encounter smaller mysteries, controversies, or revelations all the time, new medical advice, technological breakthroughs, rumors about local events. Each time, you face a choice: accept the first explanation that aligns with your biases, dismiss everything that conflicts with them, or investigate further. The cumulative effect of these choices shapes your personal relationship with wonder. If you default to easy answers, your sense of wonder might wither, reduced to passive consumption of sensational headlines. If you aggressively reject anything that dares to challenge your mental framework, you may end up on an island of rigid thinking. However, you approach new claims with curiosity and a dash of healthy skepticism, testing them, comparing them with known evidence, consulting multiple perspectives. You nurture an ongoing sense of wonder that remains tethered to reality. One might argue that we can't possibly investigate every claim. There's too much information, too little time. True enough. But we can cultivate a habit of mind, an openness combined with discernment, that helps us sift through the noise. We can also lean on the community, drawing on expert consensus where it's strong, while remembering that experts have been wrong before. This doesn't mean throwing up our hands in confusion. It means balancing trust in specialized knowledge with the recognition that new data can always emerge. Such a balance fosters resilience against both gullibility and cynicism. All this circles back to why wonder is so essential. Without wonder, we risk stagnation, letting the busy routines of daily life consume us until we forget there's a world beyond bills and errands. Wonder pokes at our complacency, reminding us that even the most mundane object, a pebble, a patch of moss, a drop of water, can reveal astonishing complexities if we look closely. Wonder dares us to ask, what if? Even if the question leads to dead ends or forces us to revise cherished assumptions. But wonder alone, if unmoored from community standards of evidence, can lead us astray. That's why we need shared norms, trust, and collaborative methods. It's in the interplay between private awe and public scrutiny that we refine our collective grasp of the unknown. Interestingly, some of the greatest scientific leaps occurred at points in history where cross-cultural exchange was thriving. Think of the Silk Road, the golden age of Islamic science, or the modern global research network. When ideas flow across borders, when different cultural backgrounds mix, new perspectives on old puzzles emerge. Wonder becomes global, a tapestry woven from multiple traditions. This cross-pollination breaks down rigid walls, showing that no single culture has a monopoly on curiosity or insight. Even the strangest claim might contain a kernel of truth that only becomes evident once it's tested against a broader backdrop of knowledge. And so we stand here, near the end of this fifth segment, turning over the same fundamental question in different lights. How do we keep the flame of wonder alive, lighting our path toward genuine breakthroughs, while avoiding the pitfalls of illusion or dogmatic refusal? The answer, if it can be called that, is nuance. We need humility, recognizing the vastness of what we don't know. We need courage, daring to face the unknown without flinching, even when it rattles our comfort zones. We need collective effort, forging bonds of trust where data, reason, and imagination can mingle freely. And we need to remember that this is a story we're all writing together, each generation picking up where the last left off. Perhaps the most profound aspect of all is that, beneath the surface of each new question, we find the human heart beating. We wonder because we care about beauty, survival, identity, purpose. We aren't just looking for cold facts. We're seeking a place in the cosmos that resonates with our sense of meaning. That's why so many myths, religions, and philosophies revolve around creation stories or cosmic visions. They fill the gaps where science hasn't yet provided clarity, or where it can't, because the questions are more moral or existential than empirical. While science can reveal the how, wonder compels us to ponder the why. And while communities help regulate which ideas gain traction, our individual experiences of awe ensure that the pursuit of knowledge remains, at its core, a deeply personal journey. So as we wrap this segment, imagine yourself turning away from the fence, your eyes adjusting to the deepening darkness. Maybe you decide to walk toward those distant hills, the ones that seem to vanish into the twilight. You don't have a flashlight, but the stars offer a faint, diffused glow. Each step feels like stepping off a cliff of certainty into the arms of the unknown. Perhaps you'll find nothing but more shadows, or perhaps, when you crest the next hill, you'll see a hidden valley, a stream you never knew existed, or some nocturnal creature that scurries away, revealing that life thrives in the places we seldom think to look. Such is the spirit of exploration that defines not just our personal quests, but the entire human enterprise. We hold hands with others, forging communities of inquiry that can catch us if we slip into delusion and cheer us when we stumble onto new insights. We do so with caution, open hearts, and a readiness to be wrong, trusting that each new horizon we meet will open onto another, and another, in a chain that never ends. In that unending chain lies the real magic of being alive, a magic that emerges from the interplay of curiosity, collaboration, and a universe vast enough to always offer fresh questions. The more we see, the more we yearn to see. The more we know, the more we realize how much remains hidden. This cycle, though it sometimes frustrates us, is also our greatest gift, a sign that we are not static beings in a static world, but explorers in a cosmos that forever invites us further. Carry that invitation with you now, as the night deepens and the chill in the air becomes more insistent. You could go back to the warmth of your familiar spaces, or you could push on, letting the faint starlight and your own sense of wonder guide you. Neither choice is inherently right or wrong. Sometimes we need the comfort of the known, other times we need the spark of the unknown. But remember that whenever you're ready, the mysteries are still there, quietly waiting, weaving themselves into the fabric of the universe and into our collective story. And remember, too, that you're not alone. Others walk this path beside you, each carrying their own lantern of curiosity, each bringing their own perspective to the quest we share. In that spirit of shared discovery, we'll press forward into the remaining segments of our journey, Examining specific puzzles, be they cosmic, terrestrial, or purely conceptual, we'll challenge ourselves to apply the lessons learned so far, balancing wonder with evidence, seeing illusions for what they are yet remaining open to revelations that might rewrite our understanding of existence. And we'll keep returning to the heart of it all, the deep, resonant truth that to be human is to wander in search of light, guided by the unstoppable pulse of curiosity that leads us onward, step by adventurous step, into the endless unknown. Tools to tell fact from fiction. Picture yourself standing at the threshold of an old, expansive library at dawn, the sunlight seeping through tall, arched windows. Rows upon rows of shelves stretch before you, each crammed with centuries of human thought, maps, scrolls, and bound volumes that whisper of half-remembered civilizations, cosmic riddles, and infinite possibilities. You can practically feel the weight of so many questions, so many theories, pressing softly against your senses. Yet, there's an unmistakable hush, as though all these accumulated words are quietly inviting you to find your place among them, to peel back the pages of the unknown and discover something you've never considered before. A small part of you hesitates, wary of the labyrinth that might await in those dusty tomes. Another part of you, though, is eager, a flicker of excitement telling you that, within these walls, countless mysteries beckon. As you cross the threshold, your footsteps echo faintly on the marble floor. Each echo seems to linger, as if urging you onward, deeper into the library's many aisles. There's a familiarity to this scene if you've been following along. A sense of stepping from the comfortable into the vast, from the known into something that flickers just out of reach. We've spoken of wonder and curiosity, of illusions and conspiracies, of communities that shape our view of reality and the delicate dance between what we yearn to believe and what we can verify. But in this sixth segment, it's time to wait further still, pulling threads from each of those conversations into a tapestry that asks, how do we keep going when the questions grow in complexity, when the threads tangle, and when the intangible pushes back against all our attempts to chart it? We've explored how illusions, misinformation, and cultural biases can lead us astray, and how scientific rigor acts as a compass, pointing us toward collective truths. We've acknowledged that wonder is both an invitation and a risk, a force that can illuminate or overwhelm. And we've looked at how entire communities, sometimes entire eras, either foster or suppress that spark of curiosity in ways that profoundly shape what gets discovered and when. Each of these themes now converges in the question of how we, as individuals and as a society, navigate questions that might be too large, too subtle, or too interwoven with our deepest hopes and fears to yield simple answers. Think of dilemmas about the nature of consciousness, about the role of free will in a universe governed by physical laws, about whether time itself might fold or loop in ways that undermine our linear assumptions, or about moral quandaries that arise when technology grants us choices our ancestors never had to face. You might pause and wonder if these topics drift beyond the realm of the unexplained, into something more philosophical or spiritual. But isn't that precisely the territory where wonder thrives best, where it refuses to be confined by tidy labels, bridging the gap between practical knowledge and existential yearning? Indeed, the lines we draw between the scientific, the philosophical, and the spiritual are, sometimes, illusions of our own making. Real questions rarely fit neatly into boxes. They spill over edges, reminding us that the cosmos doesn't respect our desire for well-marked boundaries. The puzzle of dark matter, for example, in principle, be wholly physical, a missing piece in our equations. Yet it also invites metaphors about hidden structures in reality, paralleling the hidden scaffolding of the psyche or the threads of fate woven invisibly through a life. Scientific or metaphorical, literal or symbolic, each dimension can inform the other if we're open to the interplay. Of course, this openness can lead to confusion if we're not vigilant. The more we allow different ways of knowing to intersect, the more we risk conflating scientific rigor with personal epiphany, or historical fact with mythic symbolism. That's where the tools we've discussed, collaborative inquiry, repeatable evidence, the willingness to adapt beliefs to data, remain critical. Think of them as the sturdy reading tables in this great library. They offer a stable surface where you can spread out your notes, compare texts from different sections, and piece together a coherent map, even if it's provisional. Without that stable surface, you might end up hunched in a dark corner, weaving elaborate illusions that no one else can test or share. But suppose you do set your notes down on that table, determined to sift through a particularly vexing mystery. The possibility that advanced extraterrestrial life has visited Earth, or the suspicion that consciousness might not just be a product of the brain but something more fundamental woven into the fabric of reality. Perhaps you find texts claiming that UFO sightings and near-death experiences hold the key, that the evidence is overwhelming if only you interpret it correctly. Next to them, you find well-documented scientific critiques pointing out that many sightings are misidentified phenomena, that extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. A third shelf might contain philosophical treatises arguing that no empirical method can fully capture the essence of subjective experience or qualia. The library is vast, and so are the arguments. You realize there may be no single volume that resolves your puzzle. Instead, you might have to synthesize, reading widely, testing claims, seeing where logic holds and where it frays. The process can feel both exhilarating and exhausting. Exhilaration comes from glimpsing how many perspectives exist, how each brings a piece of the puzzle that might spark an insight. Exhaustion arises when you notice contradictions or endless loops of argument that never quite converge. You might wonder, is this a sign that the truth is elusive, or that we haven't yet found the right method, or perhaps that multiple truths can coexist, each valid in a different context? We approach the slippery domain of relativism versus objectivity. Some argue that all viewpoints are equally valid, that our personal experiences and cultural contexts shape reality so thoroughly that universal truth is a phantom. Others maintain that beneath the swirl of subjective opinions, objective truths do exist. Stars burn at certain temperatures, species evolve over millennia, black holes warp spacetime, and 2 plus 2 is equal to 4 no matter who's counting. The friction between these stances is as old as the library's oldest scrolls, and it often emerges when we confront the truly unexplained. It might help to remember that we can hold multiple perspectives in tension without collapsing them into an either-or. We can accept that certain empirical facts hold under all known conditions, while also recognizing that meaning, interpretation, and personal significance vary wildly. It's akin to reading an ancient myth about a sun deity while also knowing that the sun is a massive fusion reactor of hydrogen and helium. One explanation satisfies your rational, evidence-based mind, the other speaks to archetypal fears, and the human inclination to personify forces we can't fully tame. Both can sit side by side, each addressing different facets of the same cosmic phenomenon. The trouble occurs when we force one lens to do the job of the other, when we treat mythic narratives as strict cosmological models or dismiss cultural symbolism as worthless because it lacks scientific proof. In this sense, wonder might be a bridging concept. It allows us to traverse different frames of reference without demanding that one eradicate the other. So, bridging concepts need anchors if they're to guide us, not lead us astray. That's why, time and again, we circle back to the notion of testing, of communal verification, of stepping outside our own biases. Because illusions often loom largest where our emotional stakes are highest. If you desperately want to believe in cosmic guardians watching over humanity, you might discount contradictory evidence. On the other hand, you're determined to see life as a bleak accident in a dead cosmos, you might mock or ignore phenomena that suggest otherwise. Wonder can draw our eyes upward, but it's the structure of inquiry that keeps our feet on the ground. Think of it as climbing a tall ladder in the library to reach some obscure reference volume on a high shelf. Your desire to learn is what makes you ascend, but the ladder's rungs, if well built, are what keep you from falling. Imagine you've spent hours, or days, or years, weaving through the library, absorbing arguments, cross-referencing data, brainstorming with fellow explorers. At some point, you might stumble upon a discovery that feels like a revelation, Maybe a piece of evidence or a conceptual link that clarifies some confounding puzzle. That spark of clarity can be astonishing, like stepping into a hidden room lit by an unexpected skylight. In science, we call these moments eureka events or paradigm shifts, when the old framework cracks, revealing a more elegant or encompassing structure. They don't happen every day, and they rarely happen for everyone at once. Sometimes the new idea has to fight for recognition, as those wedded to older models cling to them. Yet, these sparks can redefine an entire field, as happened when quantum mechanics shattered classical assumptions or when genetics unveiled the blueprint of life. But not every epiphany stands up to scrutiny in the outside world. Personal revelations might have tremendous meaning for you, yet remain unconvincing to others if they're based on subjective insight or unrepeatable events. That's the heartbreak and beauty of wonder. It can speak intimately to one mind while remaining invisible to another. In such cases, do we dismiss personal epiphanies as illusions simply because they lack universal proof? Or do we find a place for them in the tapestry of human experience, acknowledging that some forms of understanding might never be pinned down to a lab result? This question is not purely academic. It applies to everything from religious experiences to the quiet sense that you have a special connection to a certain place or time. If we're going to talk about beyond the known, we have to accept that some aspects might remain irreducibly personal, meaningful only in the context of an individual life. Yet, if we try to scale those personal revelations into universal claims about reality, we must face the collective process of verification or rejection. The complexity only grows when we factor in society-wide phenomena. Large-scale illusions can sometimes hold entire cultures in thrall, just as large-scale breakthroughs can catapult humanity forward. We touched on this earlier, but consider the global crises we face: climate change, resource depletion, emerging diseases, powerful technologies that might outpace our ethical frameworks. Each of these challenges brims with unknowns. Each can be approached with wonder, or a mixture of both. The difference between addressing them productively and getting lost in denial or despair often hinges on how effectively we harness collective inquiry. If we mobilize diverse minds, systematically gather evidence, and remain open to unsettling truths, we stand a chance. If we let illusions fester, claiming the crisis is a hoax or that some miraculous intervention will save us without effort, we might seal our fate. Wonder isn't just a private pastime. It's a societal resource we can channel into exploration, invention, and problem-solving, provided we anchor it in shared realities and mutual respect. Ironically, the more pressing our real-world challenges become, the easier it is to mock or sideline those who still ponder the purely speculative. The search for extraterrestrial intelligence, the quest to understand parallel universes, the question of whether consciousness can be transferred or uploaded. Some argue that we should focus on practical issues, leaving far-out speculation to science fiction. But is that wise? Many of the technologies and solutions that shape our daily lives were once far-out speculations themselves, like the notion of orbiting satellites for global communication or the idea that we could manipulate genes to cure diseases. Wonder is not a luxury. It's the creative ferment from which tomorrow's breakthroughs arise. Dismissing it might solve an immediate crisis of resources, but it could also stunt the long-term evolution of our species, cutting off the imaginative leaps that spark revolutions in thought. You might recall earlier segments discussing that uneasy boundary where conspiracy theories can overshadow legitimate speculation. This boundary becomes even more delicate when the stakes are global. If a community invests heavily in conspiratorial thinking, for example, believing hidden elites are controlling technology, then any real, innovative leaps might be overshadowed by suspicion. Conversely, if mainstream establishments become so rigid that they dismiss every new idea as frivolous or impossible, they risk shutting down the funnel of imagination from which radical solutions emerge. The challenge for each of us is to cultivate a sort of balanced vigilance, not letting illusions turn us inward toward paranoia, but also not letting fear of the bizarre or the unproven keep us from glimpsing paths that might lead to genuine progress. An illustrative anecdote might be the early days of rocketry. There was a time when the idea of reaching space was widely mocked. Some called it insane or unfeasible. Yet a handful of enthusiasts, labeled fantasists by the establishment, persisted, laying foundations that would one day carry us to the moon. Similarly, quantum theory was once derided as nonsense because it contradicted everyday intuition. Over time, quantum mechanics has become one of the most robust frameworks in physics, propelling technologies from transistors to lasers. In both cases, wonder about the impossible turned out to be a seed for real, verifiable achievement. That's not to say every impossible dream pans out. Plenty fade into dead ends, but the tapestry of innovation relies on weaving these bright, if uncertain, threads into a broader pattern tested by experiment. Standing in that grand library, you might explore the volumes that detail such success stories. You'd probably also find sections filled with cautionary tales, entire chapters on pseudoscientific movements, or episodes in history where a charismatic figure led people astray with illusions, or scientific tragedies where a misguided assumption cost lives. Balancing the shelves, you'd see accounts of how new fields formed around once laughable ideas, like plate tectonics or the Big Bang, and how some theories that looked promising collapsed under their own weight, leaving behind only the caution to test every rung of the ladder before trusting it to bear you. We arrive, then, at a subtle crossroad. If the unknown is so multifaceted and wonder can be both generative and deceptive, how do we pick which mysteries to chase? Do we follow personal passion alone, or do we set communal priorities, guiding resources toward the puzzles with the greatest chance of yielding tangible benefits? In reality, it's not an either-or decision. We need a spectrum of inquiry, some directed toward urgent problems, some exploring incremental improvements, and some purely blue sky, what-if investigations. The synergy of all three often leads to unexpected breakthroughs. The engineer solving day-to-day manufacturing issues might stumble on a principle that revolutionizes how we harness energy. The visionary exploring theoretical wormholes might spawn a new branch of mathematics that eventually improves encryption or data analysis. The group dedicating itself to preserving ancient languages might uncover a coded reference to medical practices that modern science had yet to rediscover. Life rarely unfolds as a neat chain of cause and effect. It's more like a tapestry with threads crossing, looping back, and sometimes forming surprising knots of insight. Yet, the tapestry can also snare us if we become enamored with the threads themselves at the expense of the bigger picture. That's where stepping back matters. Pausing to ask, what have we learned? Which illusions have we dispelled? And which new ones might be forming? Where is the communal trust? And how might we rebuild it if it's fraying? In these reflective moments, wonder transforms from a restless drive into a thoughtful, integrative power. It becomes the impetus for introspection, not just about the cosmos, but about how we as people handle knowledge and ignorance. Reflect, too, on how we pass this legacy forward. The spark of wonder doesn't appear out of nowhere in each new generation. It's handed down, through stories, through passionate educators who show the marvel in a chemical reaction or a historical clue, through parents who stargaze with their children and openly admit that they, too, are figuring things out. In cultures where education is prized, curiosity tends to flourish. But the form that curiosity takes depends on the social scaffolding. If from a young age you're taught that the unexplained is either taboo or trivial, you might never develop the resilience to question big ideas. If you're taught that every new claim is equally valid, you might drown in a sea of untested notions. Balanced wonder emerges when mentors guide us in the art of asking good questions and seeking robust answers, acknowledging that sometimes the best we can say is, "We're still investigating." Picture a scene in that library again. You see not just yourself but also a variety of figures. A teacher pointing out passages in ancient texts to a group of rapt students. A pair of old friends debating at a table stacked with charts. A solitary researcher hunched over a dusty manuscript. And perhaps a child skipping down an aisle, drawn by illustrations of dinosaurs or distant galaxies. The child stops at a page showing a pyramid on Mars or a rumor of lost continents. You can almost hear them saying, "Is this real? Could we find out?" That question is the seed of wonder. How the adult next to them responds, by ridiculing, ignoring, or engaging, will color that child's approach to mysteries for years to come. In the same library, you might also encounter someone convinced they've solved a cosmic enigma no one else comprehends. They present their scribbled equations or elaborate diagrams with fervent eyes. Are they a genius ahead of their time, or merely caught in a private fantasy? Without the rest of us to test their ideas, it's impossible to say. If they refuse any collaborative review, calling it a conspiracy against them, suspicion grows. If they welcome critique, modify their theory with each new piece of data, and remain open to the possibility they might be wrong, then they're participating in the communal shaping of knowledge. That's the difference between entrenched illusions and productive wonder. One closes the door, the other invites scrutiny. Eventually, the day will come when you leave the library, stepping back into the fresh air of the real world outside. Maybe it's still dawn, or maybe you've lingered until dusk. Either way, you re-enter your daily life carrying the insights, confusions, or sparkles of possibility you gathered among those shelves. The key is to keep the conversation going, not just in your head but with the communities you're part of. If you found something that moved you, a clue that an old myth might contain a kernel of verifiable history, or a new angle on a persistent scientific riddle, share it with others. Let them test it, challenge it, refine it. In doing so, you sustain that interplay of personal wonder and communal validation. You join the long chain of explorers who, across centuries, have turned private glimpses into public advancements by opening their ideas to the crucible of shared inquiry. That's precisely why this documentary, this series of segments, matters. We're not merely reciting facts or weaving tales. We're tracing the contour of how humans have always navigated the tension between the luminous unknown and the practical need for reliable truths. At each step, we've seen wonder as a dynamic force, sometimes dangerous, sometimes liberating, often both. We've seen illusions appear whenever our hunger for answers outstrips our methods, and we've seen illusions dispelled when we harness those methods with patience and openness. We've recognized that communities can stifle or nurture curiosity, and that the ultimate breakthroughs often arise when individuals dare to question the conventional but remain accountable to the evidence. In this sixth segment, we're adding the perspective that these mysteries can't all be pinned neatly to a lab bench or a single philosophical system. They spill over into every realm, spiritual, cultural, technological, moral, and they demand a multi-layered approach. We can't reduce them to bullet points or checklists. We need vibrant, ongoing dialogues that respect the full complexity of existence, dialogues that let science and lived experience cross-pollinate. If we approach the unknown with such openness and rigor, even the strangest corners of reality might eventually become part of our shared knowledge. So how does one live day to day in this spirit? Perhaps it means letting yourself be curious even about small, local mysteries, a peculiar bird call at twilight, an odd phenomenon in your neighborhood, a contradiction in a historical record that no one seems to have solved. It means resisting the urge to label any unverified story as either indisputable fact or worthless fiction, instead asking, is there a way to gather more data? To check the logic? Or even just to keep an open mind until more clues emerge? It means walking a path where you can respect the intangible aspects of life, love, meaning, creativity, without giving them carte blanche to trump established knowledge. That means, in short, nurturing a personal practice of wonder, weaving it into daily life while acknowledging the roles of both reason and collective verification. In the end, you might wonder if we ever truly solve the big mysteries. Even if we found robust evidence of alien life or pinned down a unified theory that reconciles quantum mechanics and relativity, new questions would arise. That's the cosmic contract we sign by being conscious creatures in a vast, possibly infinite universe. We chase answers only to reveal deeper, more perplexing puzzles. Instead of despairing, we can see it as a sign that existence remains endlessly generative, an eternal frontier that calls forth creativity from every generation. Perhaps that's the ultimate meaning of wonder, not a goal to be reached, but a condition of engagement with reality, a living flame that drives us to keep asking, searching, burning, and occasionally leaping beyond what anyone else thought was possible. So, stepping back from these shelves and pondering the last pages of this sixth segment, think about the synergy of it all. We've peered into illusions, conspiracies, communal trust, scientific inquiry, philosophical openness, and the personal dimension of revelation. We've recognized that illusions persist when we shield them from communal scrutiny, that wonders flourish when tested and shared. We've acknowledged that a single insight, if it resonates with the broader tapestry of evidence, can shift entire paradigms. And we've accepted that some dimensions of wonder might remain personal or subjective, but that doesn't make them irrelevant, only that they belong to a realm that public methods can't fully arbitrate. From here, the path continues. There are still segments to explore, angles to refine, examples to unravel, and direct applications to consider. In the next chapters, we might zero in on specific enigmas or dissect the interplay of wonder and practicality in more concrete detail. But for now, let the hush of the library enfold you one last time before you step into the sunlight. Let the dust motes in the angled light remind you how every speck, every question, can catch a glimmer if you hold it up just right. Realize that your part in this grand mosaic is to remain both curious and grounded, flexible in your interpretations but firm in your commitment to evidence and dialogue. If you can do that, if we can do that collectively, then no matter how perplexing the unknown remains, we'll have honored the best of who we are as explorers, thinkers, and members of an ever-curious human family. Slowly, you walk toward the exit. The light outside has brightened, or perhaps shifted into a soft gold if day has turned to evening. Each step out of the library feels like rejoining the world, but you do so changed by the pages you've glimpsed. There's a new clarity about how illusions can take root if left unchecked, and a fresh appreciation for how entire communities can harness wonder for both growth and collective problem-solving. Your mind buzzes with the interplay of reason and imagination. Maybe you'll share these reflections with friends. Maybe you'll keep them to yourself and let them shape your silent approach to daily mysteries. Either way, you'll carry a deeper sense that the unknown isn't just empty space. It's a field of potential, waiting for us to shine our lanterns into its corners. And with each corner illuminated, we become a bit more connected to each other, to the cosmos, and to that timeless spark that has always urged us to seek what lies beyond the visible horizon. The psychology of wonder. Imagine you are walking through a quiet street just after sunrise. The air is cool and still, and a gentle light touches everything around you. You notice simple details you might usually ignore: the lines on the sidewalk, the shadows of tree branches, the soft colors shifting in the early sky. In that calm moment, you feel a slight tremor of excitement. It's the same feeling that has guided our journey so far. The awareness that our everyday world holds deeper layers of mystery if we pause to look. In this seventh segment, we will explore how these deeper layers can appear in our normal routines and why that matters. Over the past chapters, we've talked about the spark of wonder. We said it can lead us to new discoveries, but it can also push us toward illusions if we lose our balance. We spoke about how communities decide which ideas to support, how science gives us methods to test claims, and how each of us holds personal feelings about the unknown. We also looked at how curiosity is never only for experts. It belongs to everyone. But we will try to connect these ideas to our daily lives in a clearer, more direct way. After all, not everyone can spend their days scanning the sky for cosmic phenomena or digging through ancient texts. Yet all of us can let wonder guide us, even in the most ordinary moments. Take a simple example. Maybe you see a strange pattern of birds flying overhead. They form an odd shape, then scatter, and you wonder if this has a reason beyond random chance. You might feel a flicker of curiosity. In another moment, you could dismiss it as unimportant. But suppose you keep that spark alive a little longer. You could do a quick online search or pick up a nature guide. You might learn that certain flocks use changing formations to save energy or escape predators. You might discover that scientists are still uncovering details of how these birds communicate. Suddenly, the small event you noticed, an odd pattern in the sky, becomes a path into larger questions about animal behavior, group dynamics, or even evolution. Your ordinary world has opened up just because you stayed curious. Yet sometimes we hold back. Maybe we think it's silly to focus on small mysteries. Or we worry we'll sound foolish if we ask questions others find trivial. But these small moments often link us to bigger ideas. This is how science and exploration start, with somebody paying attention to something that seems minor, then asking, why, or how, or what if? Great breakthroughs can begin with slight hints that others overlook. And even if we don't arrive at a grand discovery, that extra thought can make our lives richer. It reminds us that we live in a world layered with details waiting to be noticed. Of course, we must be careful not to get lost in daydreams without checking facts. In earlier segments, we discussed how illusions can grow if we refuse to test our ideas or share them with others. For example, if you see an odd light in the sky one night, you might guess it's an alien craft. That guess can be exciting, but if you stop there, you might lock yourself into a belief that may not reflect reality. A simple check, maybe looking up flight paths, local drone usage, or atmospheric events, could show you it was a plane or a trick of light. The key is to balance your curiosity with a willingness to see if evidence supports your impressions. This mix of openness and caution keeps wonder alive without letting it turn into confusion. Sometimes, though, we face questions much larger than a stray light in the sky. Questions about life's purpose, the nature of mind, or whether our universe has an ultimate meaning. These can feel too big to solve with everyday tools. In earlier parts of our journey, we saw how science handles huge topics like the birth of the universe or the mysteries of consciousness. Science makes progress, but it can't always provide final answers to the deeper why behind existence. This doesn't mean we should abandon these questions, only that we need to recognize their complexity. We might explore them through many channels: science, philosophy, spiritual reflection, each offering a piece of a grand puzzle. Yet even these lofty questions can show up in small ways. You might suddenly wonder why you dream of certain memories or why time feels slower when you're bored and faster when you're busy. These subtle experiences hint at deeper truths about how our minds work. Think about how children constantly ask, peeling back layers of the everyday until adults run out of quick answers. In adulthood, we sometimes lose that childlike persistence. We might say, "Oh, that's just how things are," and move on. But when we reclaim that early sense of curiosity, we reconnect with a part of ourselves that stays open to mystery. We realize our normal world is filled with unknowns, some small, some vast, and each can expand our view of reality if we let it. However, being open to mystery can be tricky in a modern world overloaded with information. We're bombarded by news, social media, and countless opinions daily. It's easy to get overwhelmed. This is where the idea of shared methods and communal trust, discussed in previous segments, becomes crucial. We can't examine every claim in detail. We rely on communities of scientists, journalists, researchers to sift through data and guide us. But that doesn't mean giving up our ability to think critically. Instead, we develop a habit of checking reliable sources, seeking second opinions, and staying alert for signs of confusion or manipulation. When we do this, we help create a collective environment where wonder is respected but not exploited. Let's consider how illusions can also appear in day-to-day contexts. Maybe your friend is convinced that a certain product works miracles because they saw a dramatic commercial or read a single glowing review. Or perhaps you hear rumors about a neighbor that sound extreme, yet people spread them without proof. These everyday illusions might seem minor, but they can grow if left unchecked. People can waste money, harm their health, or damage reputations when they let untested stories guide them. By asking simple questions, "Where did you hear that? Is there evidence? Who benefits if we believe this?" we can gently introduce a bit of healthy skepticism. This doesn't kill wonder, it focuses it. We start looking for real facts, genuine experts, or direct experience to see if a claim holds water. In past chapters, we talked about how societies handle large-scale illusions, from conspiracy theories to mass panics. On a smaller scale, we face a similar pattern in our own circles. If we encourage each other to keep an open mind but also to test ideas, we set a norm that curiosity matters, and so does reality checking. This norm allows us to keep exploring unusual possibilities without getting swept away by them. It's much like having a map and a compass when you walk in a strange place. You want to explore, but you also want a way to find your bearings if you drift too far. Now think about how you might share your own discoveries or wonders with friends. Maybe you read an article about a newly discovered deep-sea creature. You find it fascinating and want to tell others. A good approach might be, I found this article. It shows a strange creature living near hydrothermal vents. The scientists say it has unique features we've never seen before. It might change what we know about deep-sea life. Notice that you're citing a source, giving a reason why it's interesting, and acknowledging that it fits into a bigger story of scientific knowledge. This simple way of sharing helps others see the wonder and also see that it's grounded in real evidence. Compare that to someone saying, I heard about a monster fish that proves everything we know about biology is fake. That second approach stirs up drama but doesn't help us learn. It also makes it harder for people to take the claim seriously. Consider how to handle the feeling when you're drawn to a mystery that some folks call nonsense. It could be a topic like telepathy, unidentified aerial phenomena, or strange coincidences that might hint at more than chance. If you bring it up, you worry others might laugh or dismiss you. Yet, you're genuinely curious. One path is to keep quiet, bury your wonder, and never discuss it. Another path is to believe in it without question, ignoring all evidence to the contrary. But there's a healthier middle path. Share your interest, but also share your questions. Ask, what would count as good evidence for or against this? Has anyone tried to study it carefully? Could there be normal explanations? This approach signals that you're open-minded but also want to stay tethered to what we can test or observe. Sometimes, such mysteries remain unresolved. But by talking about them in a thoughtful way, you keep the conversation productive. Remember, science itself has expanded by taking once unbelievable ideas seriously and testing them. Germs were once mocked as a silly thought, but now we base entire medical fields on them. Black holes sounded absurd, yet today we have pictures of them. The difference is that these ideas became testable, and when the tests confirmed them, they entered mainstream knowledge. If we see a concept that can't currently be tested, we can still ask, could it ever be tested? How might that happen? That line of thinking moves us from blind belief or dismissal toward actual progress. We also have personal experiences that don't easily fit the scientific method, strong intuitions, sudden insights, or moments when we sense connections we can't fully describe. These can be powerful and life-changing. In earlier chapters, we noted that not everything meaningful is going to be proven in a lab. So how do we handle that? We can hold those experiences gently. We acknowledge they mean a lot to us, but we also realize we can't force them on others as ultimate truth. If these experiences inspire us to learn more, to explore certain fields or read certain books, that's good. But if we try to claim universal proof from a personal feeling, we might run into problems. Holding the difference between subjective value and objective proof keeps us honest while still honoring the depth of what we feel. By this point in our journey, you might wonder, how do I keep wonder alive in a world full of daily tasks, pressures, and responsibilities? We can't spend all our time gazing at stars or diving into research papers. There are bills to pay, jobs to do, and loved ones to care for. But wonder isn't about ignoring real-life duties. It's about letting curiosity color how we see those duties. For example, if you work with computers, you might occasionally ask, how does this technology really function? What bigger changes in society has it caused? If you're a parent, you might encourage your child's why questions, joining in the exploration rather than shutting them down. If you garden, you might notice new details about plant growth, or soil chemistry, leading you to marvel at the complex dance of life right in your yard. In short, wonder can weave into the everyday, reminding us that even our routines sit atop countless marvels we rarely pause to notice. At times, you might feel a whisper of unease that the world is too big, the mysteries too vast. You might sense how small you are in the grand scheme of things. In earlier segments, we talked about that pinch of humility. It can be scary to accept that we're only a tiny part of the universe, that we might never have all the answers. Yet this acceptance can also free us. It means we don't have to pretend we're certain about everything. We can keep learning, keep asking, and keep expanding our minds. Life becomes less about reaching a final endpoint and more about staying engaged with the wonders that keep unfolding. If you think about it, each of us is born into a world shaped by others' discoveries, language, technology, culture. Then, as we grow, we add our own small piece of insight or creativity. We pass that forward to the next generation. Wonder is the thread that connects these contributions. It's the spark that makes people ask new questions or tackle old problems in fresh ways. Without wonder, societies stagnate. Without checks and methods, they spin out into chaos. Balancing these forces, openness to mystery and careful checking of facts, keeps the collective engine of progress moving. Reflect on your own circle of friends or coworkers. Does anyone talk about big questions? Do you ever discuss unusual phenomena or new research findings? If not, maybe you can start. It doesn't have to be formal. Simply share an article about a newly found species or an unknown aspect of ancient history. Ask how others interpret it, or mention a dream that puzzled you and see if anyone has thoughts on what it could mean. These small acts can invite wonder into everyday settings, showing that it doesn't always have to be saved for special documentaries or classes. Wonder can thrive in casual conversation as long as we keep it respectful and open-ended, not turning it into forced debates or rigid dogma. Earlier, we noted that illusions can take root when people lack trust in each other or in shared sources of knowledge. This is why it's important to nurture relationships where open exploration is welcomed. A friend might propose a strange idea, and instead of laughing, you might say, "That's interesting. Do you have any source or example that made you think that?" They might then realize they're basing it on a rumor. Or maybe they do have a surprising source. You both learn something, forging a bond over the mutual quest for truth. Over time, these small moments build a culture of curiosity. In such a culture, illusions have a harder time growing because people help each other see both sides of any claim. Now, imagine we take this culture and apply it to larger community issues. People might approach local problems, like water pollution, energy use, or public health, with the same mix of wonder and evidence. Instead of ignoring data or clinging to half-baked rumors, they'd ask, "What do experts say? Can we test solutions here? Are there real-life examples from other places?" They'd also stay open to creative ideas that might sound unusual at first. This attitude doesn't guarantee immediate success, but it forms a habit of working together toward solutions. It respects the unknown, but it also respects reality checks. Over time, communities that foster this approach can adapt better to changing times. They're less likely to fall for illusions or get stuck in outdated ways. This might sound idealistic, but history has shown that communities can shift their mindset when enough people act in ways that encourage reason and open-mindedness. Think of the Renaissance in Europe or the scientific blossoming in various periods of Chinese history. In these times, curiosity and careful study were valued, which led to leaps in art, science, and social structures. While no era is perfect, we see that positive change can happen when wonder and grounded methods flourish together. So, as we near the close of this segment, we step out of our sunrise street or workplace or wherever we are in daily life, carrying the idea that we can invite wonder into even the smallest corners. We can watch out for illusions by staying in touch with careful checks, acknowledging that mistakes and biases happen. We don't have to be experts at everything. We just need to keep the door open to learning, to comparing notes, and to adjusting our views as we gather more facts. This approach might sound simple, but it's surprisingly powerful. It touches every part of life, from the way we talk with friends to the way we vote on community issues or the way we raise children to see the world as vast and full of questions. All these thoughts circle back to the main message. Wonder is a gift that can enrich us, but we must shape it with a sense of responsibility. When we do, it not only makes life more vivid and exciting, it also helps us grow as individuals and as groups. Instead of closing ourselves off or letting illusions spread, we use both our hearts and our minds to explore carefully. In the upcoming segments, we will keep building on these foundations. We might dive into more specific examples of how wonder meets the unexplained in fields like archaeology, astronomy, or the study of strange phenomena. We might see how these ideas play out in stories of real explorers or scientists who risked everything for a breakthrough. We might even address the final, profound questions about what it means to be alive in a universe that keeps surprising us. Step, though, depends on the balance we have tried to strike: curiosity, humility, verification, and respect for the unknown. For now, let's rest in this simple thought. Whether it's a flock of birds in the sky, a new idea you stumble upon at work, or a personal insight that makes you see life differently, each moment can be a spark. Each spark can open a door to a deeper understanding if we choose to walk through it with awareness. No matter how busy we are, or how complex our world becomes, we still have that choice. We can let wonder guide us, like a gentle hand steering us beyond the ordinary, while keeping our eyes open to what is real and testable. In doing so, we keep illusions at bay and keep our sense of awe alive. That is how we move forward together, step by step, toward an ever-widening horizon of discovery. Pushing the limits of modern science. Picture yourself standing on a sandy shore at twilight. The tide is calm, the air a bit cooler than it was at midday, and the orange glow of the sun has just dipped below the horizon. For a long moment, you watch the first stars appear one by one. The faint rumble of distant waves becomes a quiet backdrop, like a gentle reminder that the world never truly stops changing. You breathe in the salty breeze and feel a small flutter in your chest, the same subtle wonder that's been guiding us through these segments. At the edge of land and sea, we can explore how curiosity stretches out to meet the future, our individual future, our collective future, and even the possibilities that extend beyond our planet and perhaps beyond our current understanding. In the previous part, we focused on how wonder weaves through our everyday life, how a small question or odd sight can spark a journey of learning, and how we balance openness with rational checking. Now we take a step further. We ask, what happens when we aim this curiosity at the biggest questions we can think of, our shared problems, our leaps into space, our transformations in technology, and our deep yearning to know if we are alone in this vast cosmos? It might sound grand, but everything starts with the same spark we find in small, daily mysteries. The difference is simply scale. Think of a problem that affects everyone, such as how to provide clean water or how to generate energy without harming the environment. At first glance, these might seem purely practical issues, more about engineering and resources than wonder. But dig a bit deeper, and you find they also stir questions about our long-term survival, our respect for the Earth's hidden complexities, and the creative drive that leads us to design new solutions. In many ways, the same spirit that makes a child ask, "Why is the sky blue?" or "Where do fish sleep?" is at work when engineers and scientists dare to rethink entire systems of water usage or energy production. It's the persistent urge to look at something we take for granted, like how we power our homes, and say, maybe there's a better way. This linking of simple curiosity and large-scale invention echoes the theme we've built up: wonder as a force that helps us see beyond routine habits. Yet wonder on its own isn't enough to solve global problems. We need collaboration, evidence, and real tests. We also need a sense of responsibility, because some attempts to solve problems can create new ones if we rush in without foresight. Throughout history, we've seen examples of well-intended inventions that caused environmental damage or social disruption. The humility we discussed earlier becomes vital. The acceptance that every solution might have side effects we must track, that no single idea remains flawless under all conditions. Wonder, paired with humility and thorough testing, leads to the best chance of genuine progress. Let's take a glimpse at space exploration, one of humanity's most visible displays of collective wonder. From the moment we realized the stars and planets were more than distant lights, we felt drawn to them. Over centuries, curiosity turned into determination. We learned to launch satellites, land on the moon, send rovers to Mars, and even place telescopes beyond Earth's atmosphere to peer deeper into cosmic history. Each step expanded not just our scientific knowledge but also our sense of identity. Realizing there might be countless planets orbiting countless stars can make everyday concerns feel smaller, or, paradoxically, more precious. The idea that life might exist elsewhere in the universe, or that we might one day travel beyond our solar system, stirs excitement as well as caution. Could we handle discovering alien life? Could we manage the social and ethical complications of becoming a multi-planet species? Those big questions sometimes feel far from daily life, but they circle back to the core principle. How do we handle new frontiers in a way that merges wonder with wisdom? If we carry illusions or untested fantasies into these realms, we risk mistakes. For example, ignoring basic realities of space travel could end in tragedy. Similarly, if we let fear block all attempts to venture out, we might miss learning vital lessons about our universe and ourselves. The balance again appears. Curiosity urges us forward. Methods of testing keep us grounded. The same pattern we apply to a random flicker of light in the sky can apply to a mission to Mars. Gather information, form hypotheses, run multiple checks, remain open to surprises. Speaking of surprises, consider the possibility that, somewhere out there, life has evolved into intelligent civilizations. The question, are we alone, is not new, but each year it gains fresh context. We keep finding more exoplanets, some in habitable zones around their stars. We refine our instruments to detect chemical signatures that might hint at biology. We invent new ways to scan for signs of advanced technology. Yet, so far, the cosmic radio channels remain silent, at least to our current detection methods. Does that mean we truly are alone? Or is it that we haven't looked in the right way or long enough? This is where wonder can become a deep well of patience. Some phenomena might take decades or centuries to fully explore. Humans have only had radio telescopes for a blink in cosmic terms. The fact that we haven't found signals yet might say little about the rest of the galaxy. But this waiting game can also breed illusions. Some might latch onto every unexplained signal as proof of extraterrestrials, while others might dismiss the search entirely. A middle approach, as always, is to stay open, to keep refining our methods, and to accept that a lack of immediate answers doesn't mean we should give up. The reward for persistence, if we ever do find a trace of life elsewhere, would be the kind of transformative revelation that has shaped entire epochs in history. Now, let's bring the focus down a bit closer to home. Technology is changing how we live in ways that once seemed like science fiction. Artificial intelligence, rapid genetic editing, even the potential to create virtual worlds that blur lines between reality and imagination. Such advancements raise moral and practical questions that weren't possible a generation ago. If we can modify the genes of our children to prevent disease, is that a wise path? If we can build AI so advanced it behaves like a thinking mind, how do we handle its rights, or responsibilities, or potential impacts on jobs and social structures? Once again, wonder and caution intersect. We might be thrilled by the possibilities but also realize we could be stepping over thresholds we barely understand. In earlier segments, we talked about illusions, including how strong desires can blind us to real risks. In the high-tech landscape, illusions can appear in two directions. On one side, we might get swept up in hype, believing new inventions will solve all problems or create a utopia. On the other side, we might become paralyzed by doomsday fears, convinced AI or genetic editing will inevitably doom us. The reality is likely somewhere in between, requiring ongoing evaluation, ethical debates, and a watchful eye for unintended consequences. The same guiding principle emerges. We pair curiosity and innovation with a system of checks, scientific, social, and moral. But who decides these ethical boundaries? This is where our communal structures, shaped by cultural beliefs and governance, come into play. If only a small group sets the course for AI development or space travel, large segments of society might feel alienated or fear hidden agendas. Distrust grows. On the other hand, if we involve broad communities, we risk slower progress due to disagreements. Yet, that slower, more inclusive route often yields decisions that last longer because they have wider support. This is the tension in a world that wants both fast solutions and stable consensus. Wonder isn't just personal, it's a collective resource that drives us to aim high. But it needs to be anchored in cooperation. Without trust, illusions and rumors fill the gaps. With trust, we can push boundaries more confidently. Now consider another dimension. What if we recognize there are limits to human control or understanding? Some mysteries might never fully yield, not because we lack skill, but because the universe could have layers we can't even grasp. Think about how animals perceive frequencies or signals we miss. Could there be cosmic or quantum levels hidden from our senses, or from any instruments we can build? Some philosophers suggest we might be like fish in a pond, sensing only the water, unable to conceive of life on land. That idea can be both humbling and thrilling. It nudges us to keep exploring, but also to accept we may never get a total picture. In our day-to-day world, it translates into humility. We realize, for instance, that even the best science can revise itself. We've seen major theories, accepted for decades, get updated or replaced by new data. We do not cling to illusions of final perfection. Instead, we cultivate a spirit of, this is our best current understanding, and will adapt if new evidence arrives. That stance keeps knowledge alive, flexible, and open to breakthroughs. It also staves off the arrogance that can lead us into dangerous overconfidence. This sense of possible, deeper unknowns also plays out in personal or spiritual areas. We might have experiences, moments of deep insight, empathy, or connection with nature that transcend what logic alone can explain. For some, these hint at a reality that goes beyond measurable data. For others, they remain powerful but purely internal experiences. Whichever view we take, we can approach these experiences with respect and reflection. We don't have to force them into a single narrative. Instead, we can appreciate the mystery they bring, acknowledging that life includes aspects we can't always dissect or replicate. Again, illusions can creep in if we impose these experiences as universal truths for all. But a personal sense of wonder or meaning can be a wellspring of motivation and kindness, fueling our efforts to make the world better while accepting it still holds secrets. So how do we pass these attitudes on? One key is education that blends factual learning with the invitation to question. Think of how children's eyes widen when they grasp how stars form or how tiny cells work in the body. If we teach them that knowledge is something we build together, step by step, rather than just a set of rigid facts, they'll grow up seeing mistakes not as failures but as paths to deeper insight. They'll also be more resistant to illusions, because they'll know they can test ideas and compare sources. They'll learn to say, I don't know, but I can find out, or let me check another viewpoint. This humble approach is more powerful than memorizing answers. It shapes minds that stay curious, honest, and cautious about unverified claims. Consider also the role of creativity. Some might ask, why do we need art or stories when we have science to tell us how the world works? But creative works, novels, paintings, films, can reveal truths science can't measure, like the emotional texture of discovery, the sense of longing for what's beyond our reach, or the moral complexities of new technology. In these creations, wonder takes a different form. We might see a sci-fi movie that imagines humans living on distant planets, or read a poem that captures the hush of a midnight sky. Those experiences can awaken a deeper empathy or shift how we think about cosmic or personal mysteries. If we pair that creative spark with honest inquiry, we get a synergy that fosters both imagination and respect for evidence. But recall that you're on that twilight beach, gazing at the horizon. The sea is darkening, and the stars are becoming clearer overhead. This setting invites a sense of reflection. What do we do next? As individuals who have followed this journey so far, through illusions, conspiracies, communal trust, the interplay of science and wonder, the expansions of daily curiosity, and now the forward-looking potential of our species? There's no single right answer. Each of us must find our own way to apply these ideas. But we can hold on to a few guiding points. First, we accept that the world is layered with the unknown. Second, we stay eager to learn but ready to test. Third, we realize illusions bloom when unchecked, but illusions can fade when we combine open-mindedness with a strong grounding in facts. Fourth, we see that big leaps, like exploring space or reshaping technology, require not just technical skill but also moral wisdom and social cooperation. In practical terms, you might decide to get involved in a local science club, environmental group, or community forum. You might support efforts to improve science education or public engagement with research. Or you might simply make a personal vow to remain curious in everyday life, to question rumors, or to champion constructive dialogue at work or among friends. We don't all need to become astronauts or quantum physicists. The spirit of wonder thrives in small gestures, picking up a book on a new subject, talking about it with family, or thoughtfully considering multiple viewpoints before settling on an opinion. What if some find these approaches slow or dull, craving immediate certainty or dramatic answers? We can gently remind them that real depth often grows from patience. Immediate certainty can be an illusion itself, a blanket that hides complexity. Dramatic answers can fizzle when faced with reality's stubborn details. True breakthroughs, personal or scientific, emerge when we nurture long-term curiosity and a willingness to adapt. That might not sound as exciting as a headline proclaiming a final solution, but it has the advantage of being real. It keeps us from building fragile towers of belief that collapse with the slightest breeze of contradicting evidence. You might also face times when you feel overwhelmed by how little you know or how big the universe is. Perhaps you gaze at the starry night and feel almost dizzy at the scale of it all. The same dizzy feeling can come when looking at problems like poverty or pandemics. How can one person's wonder or caution make a dent in such vastness? Yet, when you remember that knowledge, solutions, and even cosmic discoveries have always been built by many minds over generations, you realize that each spark of curiosity adds up. Each question asked, each method shared, each illusion dispelled. These are small but important steps. They lay the ground for bigger leaps. If we step away from wonder because the universe or the challenges seem too large, we cut off the very engine that drives any chance of real growth. So we keep going, one step at a time, trusting that we're part of something larger, a continuous thread of human exploration. Even the humblest inquiry, like noticing an odd detail in your neighborhood, can feed into that larger tapestry. Maybe you find a certain bird species behaving in a strange way. You document it and share it with local experts. That information might connect to bigger environmental patterns. Or maybe you have an idea for a small energy-saving device, and you tinker with it in your garage, eventually sharing it online. It might catch the eye of a researcher who refines it into something that benefits many. These might sound like daydream scenarios, but countless real innovations began this way. In each case, wonder served as the seed, evidence-based checking nurtured the plant, and community sharing helped it spread. Looking ahead, we might also prepare ourselves for surprises. History is full of unexpected discoveries that no one predicted, from the existence of radio waves to the bizarre properties of quantum entanglement. The future may hold equally startling revelations, maybe bizarre life forms in an ocean beneath an ice-covered moon, or signals from an intelligence that defies our assumptions, or even a brand new way of understanding mind and consciousness that unites biology and technology. If we meet these surprises with rigid disbelief or untested gullibility, we lose out. If we meet them with the balanced approach we've been describing, open eyes, shared inquiry, and a willingness to shift our view if real data supports it, then we might experience the joy of genuine discovery on a scale that stirs our hearts as well as our minds. Now, as the evening deepens on that quiet shore, the stars glow brighter, and you might sense an echo of ancient navigators who once used the night sky to find their way across unknown seas. Their wonder about the stars turned into the science of astronomy and the art of navigation. They risked illusions, overcame them through repeated measurements, and slowly charted the globe. In a similar way, we stand at the edge of unknown seas, some planetary, some cosmic, some technological. The question is whether we will sail forward with curiosity and care, or let illusions or fear anchor us. The path to growth and discovery might not be smooth, but it's the one that leads us outward and upward, into realms we can't yet imagine. It's worth noting that some illusions do not vanish easily. Even if strong evidence contradicts a cherished belief, people may cling to it for emotional or cultural reasons. So we need empathy, too. We have to understand that logic alone might not free someone from a deep-seated idea that gives them comfort or identity. Patience, respectful conversation, and showing the beauty of exploring new information can sometimes open a door. Over time, hearts and minds can shift. The point isn't to win by proving someone wrong, but to share the excitement and clarity that come from letting wonder and evidence work together. Eventually, illusions may fade like the last glow of sunset, making room for clearer nights of honest stargazing. This 8th segment, then, is about stepping confidently toward what's next. It's about how wonder, once nurtured in daily experiences, can shape our broader goals, whether they involve tackling urgent problems or reaching into the cosmic unknown. It's about recognizing that illusions can pop up on large and small scales, but that a culture of open inquiry helps us catch them in time. It's about understanding that each of us has a role, however small, in this grand tapestry of progress. The simplest question can lead to a chain of insights, and each insight can feed a collective momentum that benefits everyone. If you leave this beach setting now, walking back to your life with these thoughts in mind, you might look at the city lights differently. Each street lamp might remind you that someone once had to figure out electricity, generation, distribution, and safety codes. Each building might reflect architectural ideas that were once new and untested. You might notice how millions of small wonders, chemistry, physics, biology, engineering, human collaboration, come together to create the environment you navigate every day. Far from diminishing the magic of existence, this realization can deepen it. You see that the world we've built is itself a testament to our capacity for wonder, tested by shared methods and refined across time. Illusions can still lurk in shadows. Some groups may twist facts, spread rumors, or exploit fear. But the same tools we use to build modern society, communication, skepticism, teamwork, can also defuse these illusions if we stay watchful and engaged. None of this is a guarantee. It's a dynamic process that depends on how we cultivate it. If we become complacent, illusions grow. If we remain curious and careful, illusions fade. It's a choice we make over and over again. Finally, we arrive at a simple truth. Wonder is a continuous invitation. It does not end with a certain age, degree, or achievement. It renews itself each time we encounter something that challenges our assumptions. Perhaps you will find it tomorrow in a news story about a newly discovered species of fungus that glows in the dark, or in a philosophical conversation about free will, or in a heartfelt talk with an older relative who has seen the world change many times over. If you look closely, each scenario offers a glimpse beyond the surface. You can let that glimpse pass or let it spark a small flame of inquiry. Over time, countless small flames light up a shared path, bright enough to guide entire generations toward deeper understanding. The choice, as always, is ours. In that sense, the story of illusions and wonder is as personal as it is cosmic. It asks each of us to decide whether we remain seekers, even when the path is unclear. Do we ask the extra question? Do we research a bit more, talk with others, compare notes, and then weigh the results? Do we remain open to adjusting our worldview if something truly compelling comes along? These habits might seem minor, but they shape how we collectively respond to big events, from scientific breakthroughs to environmental shifts to cultural transformations. As the stars multiply overhead, you might step closer to the water, letting the sea lap at your feet. The horizon is dark now, but you can still sense the expanse of open water beyond. It's both comforting and slightly intimidating to realize how large and mysterious that open water is. In that expanse, so much remains undiscovered: new species in the depths, uncharted areas beneath ice shelves, entire realms of possibility in how nature's processes intertwine. In the same way, the cosmic ocean extends above, with infinite stars, galaxies, and possibly countless other forms of life. The parallel is striking. Both up there and out across the water, the unknown calls to us. What will we do with that call? Will we turn away, saying it's all too big, too complicated, not worth the trouble? Will we be so dazzled we let illusions carry us into fantasy? Or will we choose the middle route, letting ourselves be awed and yet also grounding ourselves in shared, tested understanding so that each step outward is purposeful? This question lies at the heart of our exploration, bridging every topic from daily curiosities to cosmic ambitions. And that is how we can summarize the journey so far. We started with the notion of wonder as a spark that can guide us toward truth or mislead us if we're not careful. We explored how illusions grow when untested, how communities shape which ideas gain traction, and how daily life can be a field for constant learning. We looked at how these principles become more intense when we face large-scale problems or cosmic questions. In each case, the same pattern emerged. Wonder can open doors, but we must use evidence, dialogue, and humility to decide if walking through those doors is wise and beneficial. Looking ahead, the details of how we meet the future remain open. We may discover life beyond Earth or develop technologies that transform our bodies or minds. We may solve long-standing issues or face new ones we can't predict. Through it all, illusions will appear, whether in the form of overhyped hopes, paranoia, or manipulated beliefs. But so will genuine discoveries, those moments that redefine who we are and what we can become. If we stay true to both the enchantment of the unknown and the checks that keep our knowledge honest, we can navigate these possibilities with courage and clarity. Now, as you gently leave the shore and make your way home, notice how the sky's darkness gives more room for the stars to shine. It's a reminder that sometimes we need quiet, open space, inner or outer, to appreciate how vast reality is and how many clues we might be missing in our everyday rush. The path forward isn't about racing to the final answer. It's about staying awake to each clue, each partial insight, and letting them build toward something deeper. That's the quiet promise of wonder, a promise that no matter how complex our challenges become, we can choose to approach them with both daring and caution, with both imagination and evidence, and with hearts open to the fact that we share this searching with countless others, present and future. So we conclude this 8th part with the same gentle insistence that has guided each step. Keep that sense of wonder alive, let illusions be tested, celebrate real findings, and reach out to others who share or challenge your curiosity. In the next chapters, we'll continue weaving these ideas into more concrete examples, following the paths that wonder illuminates, exploring how illusions can be dispelled, and perhaps glimpsing possibilities that once seemed out of reach. Until then, hold on to that spark in your own corner of the world, trusting that every sincere question, every honest effort to learn, and every quiet moment of awe adds to the collective fire that lights our way. Embracing the endless unknown, let's take a moment to see where we stand in this journey. We've spent our time unraveling how curiosity and wonder can drive us forward, how illusions can sidetrack us, and how communities and shared methods can keep us on track. But after all these reflections, one question remains: how do we actually live out these ideas, in our personal routines, in our relationships, and in our larger pursuits, so that wonder benefits us without sending us down the wrong roads? It might help to step back and think about why wonder matters at all. Some people see curiosity as a side hobby, an occasional spark of interest that doesn't really affect the serious parts of life. But if we look closer, wonder underlies a lot of what we do, even when it's disguised as problem-solving or day-to-day tasks. When we face a challenge, big or small, one of the first things we do is ask, what if? Or, how could we try this differently? Or, is there a better way? That's the seed of curiosity at work. It might be small, but it points us toward new territory, pushing us to learn, to innovate, and sometimes to collaborate with others who have fresh ideas. The problem is, wonder can also lead us astray if we don't pair it with healthy checks. We've called these checks different names: evidence, testing, peer review, second opinions, but the point is the same: to see if our spark of interest aligns with what's real. Because illusions can creep in when our eagerness outpaces our verification. For instance, imagine you hear about a natural cure for every disease known to humanity. It's appealing, right? Especially if a loved one is sick. Without pausing to check if any solid data backs this claim, you could fall into a trap, waste time, waste money, or even cause harm. This is a classic example of how illusions can gain traction when our desire for a solution meets a lack of careful investigation. Now, let's bring that down to ordinary life. You might not be on the verge of buying miracle cures every day, but you do encounter rumors, headlines, or half-baked stories all the time, be it in the office, among friends, on social media, or in local community groups. Each time you spot one, you have a choice: to shrug and pass it on without thought, to harshly dismiss it, or to take a brief moment to see if there's anything behind it. Sometimes, a quick search or a conversation with someone more knowledgeable can make all the difference, turning a potential illusion into a deeper understanding, or, at the very least, preventing misinformation from spreading further. A key point here is that curiosity doesn't vanish just because we've grown older, busier, or more jaded. You might remember that spark you had as a kid, always asking why or how. But as adults, we often push that spark aside, telling ourselves we don't have time. Yet if we nudge ourselves to keep asking the occasional question, like, why is this local policy being proposed? Or, how does this technology in my phone really work? We reconnect with that childlike desire to see beyond the surface. Staying curious doesn't mean you have to become an expert on everything. It just means acknowledging that the world is layered with details waiting to be discovered, and you have every right to poke around a bit. Now, let's discuss how illusions can develop within communities. Imagine a small town grappling with an economic problem, say, a decline in a local industry. A charismatic individual might roll in with big promises: "I've discovered a surefire way to bring wealth back. Just invest in my plan." If people are desperate, they might jump on board without questioning the feasibility or asking for evidence of past success. Within months, rumors and hype can build a near illusion bubble, with everyone convinced this scheme is the answer. Only later, after money is lost and trust is broken, do they realize the plan wasn't grounded in real analysis. This is how illusions can sweep through entire groups, fueled by hope, lack of transparency, and too little critical thinking. But suppose that same community has a habit of open discussion. They hold town meetings and invite local experts or external advisors. Fifth, how exactly does this plan work? Can we test it on a small scale first? Have you done something like this before? They keep an open mind but also want to see evidence. Not only does this approach reduce the odds of being misled, it can also lead to genuinely creative solutions. Someone else might propose a smaller but more reliable idea that can be tested step by step, leading to real, modest improvement. This pattern, balancing curiosity with caution, is precisely what we've been talking about. It's not just for high-stakes global events. It applies to local issues, business decisions, or even personal finances. Another angle is how illusions intersect with our emotional needs. Sometimes, illusions persist because they fulfill a deep longing, maybe for security, for a sense of belonging, or for simple answers in a complicated world. Conspiracy theories, for instance, often thrive not just because the evidence is persuasive, it usually isn't, but because they offer a story that explains people's anxieties. They give a sense of secret knowledge, of being an insider who sees the truth behind the lies. In a world that can feel chaotic, that can be comforting. That's why facts alone often don't dispel illusions. You must also address the underlying emotional or social hooks. People need to feel they have other ways to find meaning or belonging, or they'll cling to illusions even when the evidence is against them. So how do we gently dislodge such illusions? One approach is respectful curiosity. Instead of saying, "That's stupid," we can say, "Hey, I want to understand how you arrived at that conclusion. Can we look at the sources together? Or let's see if there's any official study on that." By involving the other person in a shared investigation, we reduce defensiveness. They might still hold on if the illusion gives them identity, but we open a door to more thoughtful inquiry. We also show empathy, acknowledging that the world can be confusing and that it's human to grasp at answers that seem to solve our uncertainties. Meanwhile, let's not forget the big cosmic or scientific questions that first drew our interest. Even if you're an ordinary person with no special access to labs or space telescopes, you can stay informed through documentaries, articles, and citizen science projects, like those analyzing astronomy data or wildlife photos. You remain part of a global conversation about what's out there, be it the search for life on Mars, the nature of dark matter, or breakthroughs in quantum physics. It's true you may not be the scientist who cracks the code, but your curiosity can help create a culture that supports research and respects evidence. When you share an interesting science story, show where the data came from, or mention how researchers tested a hypothesis, you do a tiny part in promoting a culture that values real discovery over hype. Consider how wonder also ties into moral choices about technology or social issues. Let's say an advanced AI system enters your workplace, able to do tasks faster than humans. Some might fear it, some might overhype it, but a balanced approach is to understand what it can and can't do, and then figure out how best to integrate it without harming jobs or ignoring ethical concerns. Here again, illusions could appear, illusions of perfect AI that never fails, or illusions of AI that will destroy all human work. Reality is more nuanced. If you keep your curiosity open, asking, "What's the system actually capable of?" and check the data looking at real tests, not just marketing claims, you can find a middle path that might lead to better efficiency plus reskilling programs for employees. That might sound boring compared to a doomsday scenario or a utopian fantasy, but it's how progress often happens, through balanced, informed steps. We've also touched on how illusions can arise in medicine. Let's be frank, healthcare can be complicated, expensive, and sometimes scary. It's no wonder people look for simple cures or miracle diets. The wonder we have about the body can motivate real breakthroughs. Think about how curiosity has led to gene therapies or immunizations that save lives. But illusions pop up when a few anecdotes get sold as universal truth, or when someone claims a single pill fixes everything. One of the best defenses? Good communication between healthcare providers and the public. To doctors, nurses, or scientists explain how they arrived at their conclusions, showing data in an accessible way, people are less likely to turn to illusions. And if the public feels comfortable asking questions, they're more likely to trust well-grounded treatments instead of latching onto half-truths they find on the internet. From here, let's pivot to something we rarely talk about explicitly, the value of not knowing. Many illusions thrive because people crave certainty. A big part of balancing wonder and reality is being okay with saying, "I'm not sure yet." That can be uncomfortable. We like having firm answers. But if we understand that the path to real knowledge often involves a phase of uncertainty, we can relax a little and let the process unfold. Maybe your friend claims a new diet is the ultimate health hack. You can say, "Interesting. I'm not convinced. Let's wait to see if any large studies confirm it." That's not fence-sitting. It's allowing time for data to gather and for illusions to fade if they're just hype. This acceptance of partial ignorance can also deepen relationships. Imagine a family dinner where a heated debate arises over a political or scientific issue. People sometimes talk past each other, each claiming they know best. But if someone calmly states, "I'm not fully certain, here's what I've read, but I'd like to see more sources," it can shift the tone. It invites others to adopt a similar humility, maybe acknowledging they haven't checked everything either. Suddenly, the dinner table can become a place of shared curiosity rather than a battleground of fixed opinions. That might not happen overnight, but it's a model of how wonder, and a recognition that illusions can fool anyone, can lead to more open dialogue. In a broader sense, this approach can reshape entire communities if enough people embrace it. Imagine you live in a town where folks regularly gather to discuss local issues, share articles, or talk about new research that might apply to the community. They do so with a standard: we're not here to win arguments or spread rumors. We're here to explore options, check facts, and see what might benefit us all. Over time, this builds mutual respect and trust. People still disagree on details. Nobody's expecting uniformity, but illusions are less likely to hold sway because someone eventually says, "Can we verify that claim? Who can we ask for a professional opinion? Has this approach worked elsewhere?" Such a community might handle crises, like floods, diseases, or economic shifts, far better than one that operates on rumor and emotional frenzy. Reflect on how all of this ties back to our sense of purpose or meaning in life. For some, meaning comes from faith or spiritual practice. For others, it's found in scientific progress, creative pursuits, or social activism. But behind each path is a certain wonder about existence, a drive to see life as more than a dull cycle of tasks. If illusions can undermine trust or create false hopes, then a balanced wonder can keep us inspired in a more grounded way. That doesn't mean we have to explain away mysteries. On the contrary, acknowledging that some mysteries might remain, for example, questions about consciousness or ultimate reality, can itself be a source of awe. We just don't want illusions to fill in the gap with flimsy claims. Instead, we let curiosity lead us to honest exploration. You might ask, does all this matter to me personally? After all, you might not be launching a space mission or rewriting textbooks. But it does matter, because your small actions and mindset can influence those around you, shaping the culture bit by bit. If you consistently approach conversations with a spirit of, "Let's explore this, let's get the facts," you set an example. Friends and family might start doing the same. Children who watch you might learn to question rumors or hype and look for evidence, whether they're dealing with viral trends or odd claims on social media. One of the biggest pitfalls is feeling overwhelmed by the sheer flow of information. In the digital age, illusions can spread in seconds. A sensational tweet can reach millions before anyone checks if it's real. That's why forming good habits, like verifying sources, seeking multiple perspectives, and staying calm in the face of alarming headlines, can protect us from panic and confusion. You don't have to become a fact-checker by profession, but you can develop a sense for what reliable sources look like, how peer review functions, or even how to trace an image to its real origin. These small skills act as your personal shield against misinformation. Yet we don't want to become cynics. Over-skepticism can lead us to dismiss legitimate ideas or breakthroughs just because they sound new or different. Maybe your neighbor has discovered a genuinely clever method of organic gardening that drastically increases yield. If you roll your eyes and say, "Oh, that's just another fad," you might miss a valuable technique. So, once again, the solution is not cynicism but a balanced curiosity. That's intriguing. Could I see how you're doing it? Do you have any data or examples? Maybe I'll try a small patch in my garden to see if it works. You keep your mind open to possibility while still expecting some form of demonstration. That's how real progress and collaboration happen, through polite but genuine scrutiny. Looking beyond the immediate, let's tie this to the future of humanity. If we maintain a culture that fosters both wonder and solid methods, we open doors to solving long-term challenges. Think about colonizing other planets, addressing climate change, managing pandemics, or reforming education. These are massive tasks, and illusions, like quick-fix promises or conspiratorial blaming, can derail real action. By contrast, a community that says, let's see what the best data shows, and let's remain open to new angles or technology, stands a better chance of succeeding. This doesn't guarantee a perfect outcome, but it gives us the best odds. At the same time, we keep alive the sense that the universe is bigger and more intricate than we can possibly grasp. Maybe we'll discover microbial life beneath the ice on Europa, or maybe the mysteries of dark matter will lead to a revolution in physics. We don't know for sure, but we do know that illusions, when unchecked, can make us chase false leads, while a balanced approach keeps us flexible and ready for genuine discoveries. In the meantime, daily wonders, like a new species in the rainforest, an unexpected pattern in the stock market, or a creative app that improves daily tasks, remind us that breakthroughs can appear anywhere. The same approach, curiosity plus evidence, works in all these domains, from cosmic to mundane. It helps to see that illusions aren't always about big, spectacular claims. Sometimes they're little assumptions we never challenge, like, I can't learn a new skill because I'm too old, or, all those scientists are out of touch. These personal illusions can limit us in small ways. By applying the habit of testing claims, even our own assumptions, we might discover we're capable of more than we thought. Perhaps you can learn to code, or cook a new cuisine. Perhaps scientists aren't so different, and many are actively reaching out to share their work in understandable language. Removing illusions in everyday life can open unexpected paths for self-growth and better communication. As we round out this 9th part, the theme that stands out is action. We've explored the theoretical, how illusions form, how wonder thrives, but now it's about doing something. The steps can be small. Ask for evidence. Whenever you hear a surprising claim, simply say, "That's interesting. Where did you see that?" Or, "Is there a study or source we can check?" Stay polite but inquisitive. Instead of shutting people down, invite them to explore the topic more deeply with you. Share reliable info. When you find a credible, well-researched piece of news, pass it on or discuss it. Show how it ties to data or expert consensus. Acknowledge uncertainty. It's okay to say, "We don't know yet," or "I'm still learning." This keeps illusions at bay by not jumping to final answers too soon. Stay open to wonder. Read about new research, watch a documentary on cosmic phenomena, or try a new hobby that expands your perspective. Keep that spark alive. Use small experiments. If an idea is testable on a small scale, try it. If it's a cooking technique, a gardening tip, or a piece of do-it-yourself advice, see if it works in practice before fully embracing it. Engage with local or online communities. Discussing topics with a mix of people can highlight overlooked angles, reveal illusions, or point to stronger solutions. Adopting these habits doesn't guarantee a world free of illusions, but it steadily cultivates a more thoughtful environment. Over time, illusions that rely on secrecy or unexamined beliefs find fewer gaps to grow in. Meanwhile, real wonders, genuine breakthroughs, deeper insights gain more visibility because people can differentiate them from fluff. And that's a hopeful vision. A society where people remain excited about new ideas but ask good questions. Where fear-based rumors face polite but firm scrutiny. Where each of us can feel empowered to learn at any age, with no shame in saying, "I was wrong," or "Let me check that further." In such a culture, illusions might still pop up, because human nature hasn't changed, but they're less likely to become entrenched on a large scale. The focus stays on exploring the unknown responsibly, forging ahead in fields like space exploration, medical science, climate adaptation, or even the secrets of consciousness, all while leaving room for personal meaning and creative thought. So yes, wonder might start as a flash of curiosity, but it's also a guiding principle we can weave into our daily routines. Instead of drifting through life on autopilot, we stay attuned to the fact that the world is layered with hidden details and that illusions can arise when we overlook crucial checks. Whether you're reading an article online, chatting with neighbors about a local issue, or brainstorming solutions at work, you can bring that balanced spirit of inquiry. Over time, you'll find it not only shapes your decisions but also influences those around you, building pockets of clear, constructive dialogue in a world often overwhelmed by noise. And that, in essence, is how we shift from theoretical talk about illusions and wonder to practical, meaningful action. We start small, maybe a single conversation or a single rumor we decide to investigate. Then we expand, sharing what we learn, encouraging others to do the same. Communities that embrace this approach can do remarkable things, from cleaning up a river to launching innovative startups or educational programs. Globally, a widespread adoption of these habits can help humanity face challenges like pandemics, climate change, and the ethical puzzles of new technology with more unity and less panic. We might still disagree on strategies or values, but illusions won't so easily hijack our discourse. Meanwhile, each new day can be a reminder that life doesn't run short of mysteries. There's always another species in the ocean depths, another exoplanet to discover, another puzzle in physics or biology. We'll keep learning that some cherished beliefs might be half true, and some impossible ideas might turn out to be real. This ongoing dance between discovery and revision is the core of genuine progress. As illusions fade under scrutiny, real wonders emerge stronger, fueling further curiosity in a virtuous cycle. Stepping back from all these examples, we realize that none of this approach is complicated. It's just about being willing to say, let's check, let's talk, or let's see what the data says. It's also about not losing that sense of awe. Because if all we did was debunk illusions, we might become cynical. That's why wonder, our desire to see what lies beyond the known, complements our rational side. Together, they keep life vibrant and grounded. That's the heart of our message here in the 9th segment. Live your life in a way that blends curiosity with careful reflection. Embrace wonder, but test what you find. Enjoy creative ideas, but expect real-world proof if someone's pushing them as facts. Celebrate breakthroughs, but stay open to the possibility that tomorrow might reveal deeper layers. Encourage others to do the same. The net result is a richer personal life and a healthier community, both ready to adapt and grow. If there's one takeaway, it might be this: illusions thrive where people are either too busy to check or too intimidated to ask. But wonder, when linked with honest inquiry, thrives where people feel safe to say, I'm curious, or I don't know, or let's learn more. That humility, joined with excitement, can guide us through complex times, keep illusions at bay, and continuously reveal the wonders, big and small, that make our shared human stories so remarkable.